On the very day I had my final job interview, my mother-in-law clutched her chest, pretending to have a heart attack, and scolded me. "How could you be so selfish and abandon me like this?" My father-in-law stood blocking the front door coldly, saying, "Don't embarrass your husband with these stupid tricks." Despite my desperate explanations, my terrible husband just looked at his phone, sneering contemptuously. "You're just a parasite. You have no right to decide your own life." Without a word of argument, I resolutely turned my back, grabbed my diaper bag, and walked straight out the back door. And then 7 years later, this story starts quietly, but it won't leave you unchanged. Before we begin, leave a quick comment. Have you ever had to walk away from something that was destroying you, yes or no? I read every comment. Some details here are fictionalized for deeper impact, but the message, the lesson about reclaiming your worth, is what I hope stays with you. My name is Elena Castellano. I'm 36 years old, and 7 years ago, my husband told me I was a parasite with no right to have my own life. Then I walked 3 miles in borrowed shoes to prove him wrong. April 14th, 2018, 8:47 in the morning. I stood in the kitchen of the Harrington family home in Buckhead, wearing a blazer I'd bought at Goodwill for $6 and shoes borrowed from a neighbor who didn't ask why I needed them. My interview at Vanguard Consulting Group started in 73 minutes, and Julian Harrington, 41. My husband, the man who'd promised to build a life with me, stood in the doorway with his phone in his hand and cruelty in his voice. "You're a parasite," he said, not angry, calm, like reading a weather report. "No real qualifications, no real experience, no right to have your own life." I didn't answer. I'd learned not to. Behind him, Victoria Harrington, 58. My mother-in-law, practiced in theatrical suffering, clutched her chest the moment I appeared in interview clothes. "My heart," she gasped. "The stress. How can you abandon me like this?" Arthur Harrington, 62. The patriarch who ran Harrington Properties with the efficiency of a man who'd never heard the word no, appeared in the hallway. "A good daughter-in-law stays home to care for family," he announced. "Don't embarrass your husband with this foolishness." I nodded. I said nothing. I picked up my purse, the one with the printout of my bus ticket to Midtown folded inside, and I turned and walked out the back door. 63 minutes until my interview. The bus left in 11. I didn't know that while Julian was calling me a parasite in that kitchen, his finger was on his phone screen canceling my electronic bus ticket. I didn't know until I reached the stop on Peachtree and checked the app and saw the notification. "Your ticket has been canceled. Refund processing. $43 in my checking account. Not enough for a taxi. No Uber account because Julian monitored the family credit card." The interview was 3.2 miles away. I started walking. The borrowed shoes were half a size too small. The April sun climbed fast over Atlanta. Sweat started at my hairline by the first intersection, soaked through the Goodwill blazer by the second. I passed Harrington Properties, the office building, with Julian's name on the directory, the place I'd managed for 3 years without title or salary or credit. My strategy, my vendor negotiations, my tenant retention plan, his name on the door. Not running, not panicking, just walking. Have you ever had one morning, one door, one chance that you knew would decide everything? That's what April 14th, 2018 was. Every step in those two small shoes was choosing between the woman they told me I was and the woman I needed to become. I reached Vanguard at 9:58, 2 minutes before my interview. My shirt was transparent with sweat, my feet bleeding through cheap nylons, my hair plastered to my neck. I found the restroom, used wet paper towels on my face and neck, tucked the blazer tight to hide the sweat stains, and walked into that conference room at exactly 10 o'clock. Margaret Hollis, 55, Chief of Staff, the kind of woman who wore authority. Like good tailoring, extended her hand across the table. Two other panelists sat beside her names. I don't remember now watching me with the polite neutrality of people evaluating whether you're worth their time. "Tell us about your professional background," Constance said. I told them about managing 14 residential properties. I didn't mention I'd done it without salary. I told them about reducing operational costs by $47,000 annually. I didn't mention Julian had taken credit in his investor presentations. I told them about self-studying for my SHRMCP certification. I didn't mention I'd hidden the textbook in the bathroom and studied at 2 in the morning when the house was asleep. Margaret leaned forward. You self-taught SHRMCP. What motivated you? I need proof that what I know is real. She nodded once. Sharp. You're a strong candidate. We'll be in touch by Friday. I walked out of that building at 11:30, not knowing if I'd gotten the job, but knowing I'd survived the walk. That had to be enough. 7 years later, I'm standing in the same building. Different entrance. Not the ground floor conference room where Constance interviewed a desperate woman in borrowed shoes, the 16th floor corner office nameplate that reads Elena Castellano, Vice President of People Operations. 7 years of silence, 7 years of rebuilding, 7 years of climbing from nothing to here. And on my desk, there's an application. Chloe Miller, the woman who'd received $4,500 a month from the fund I'd managed while Julian called me a parasite, had just applied to my company. She had ghostwritten her resume using the exact operational milestones I had executed because while she took the money back then, she never actually did the work and possessed no real skills of her own. I didn't know that mourning would take 7 years to pay off. But patience, I learned, is just anger and discipline. The woman who lived off my invisible labor while I bled through borrowed shoes is about to learn what that walk cost. Not because I'm vindictive, because I'm good at my job. And my job is to verify employment history, catch resume fraud, and protect this company from people who lie about qualifications they've never earned. But to understand what happens when Chloe Miller walks into my interview room 7 years later, you need to know how I got here. You need to know about the trap that closed in autumn 2015, 3 months after I married Julian Harrington. Let me start from the beginning. The trap closed on a Thursday evening in October 2015, 3 months after I married Julian Harrington disguised as family dinner and a mother-in-law's sudden chest pain. The Buckhead house smelled like pot roast and furniture polish. Yellow lighting made everything look warm despite the chill I couldn't name. Victoria sat across from me at the long dining table, talking about her garden club fundraiser, when her hand flew to her chest mid-sentence. My heart, she gasped. Her face went pale, perfectly pale, I realized now, like she'd practiced. The doctor said, my blood pressure. I need someone here. Family. Arthur set down his fork with the precision of a man delivering a verdict. You are the daughter-in-law, he said. Not a question, an announcement. This is your responsibility. We'll handle your job situation. I looked at Julian. He nodded once. It's temporary, he said, just until she's stable. I was 25 years old. I had an accounting position at a firm downtown, not glamorous, but mine. I'd built a career from nothing, and I was 3 months into a marriage I'd believed was partnership. Of course, I said. Family comes first. I called my supervisor the next morning and requested a leave of absence. Temporary, I said. Just a few weeks. My mother-in-law's health crisis. They were understanding. They said they'd hold my position. 3 weeks became 3 months, became 2 years. Victoria's heart condition, the one that required constant monitoring, emergency responses to phantom symptoms, daily medication I organized into pill boxes, never improved and never worsened. It simply existed, a permanent state of crisis that required my permanent presence. My accounting firm stopped holding my position after 6 months. I told myself I'd find something else once Victoria stabilized. That word temporary became the lie I whispered every morning for 3 years. It was the most expensive belief I ever held. By early 2017, I'd been Victoria's unpaid caregiver for over a year, when the office manager at Harrington Properties quit suddenly. Julian appeared in the doorway of the bedroom I'd turned into a makeshift office. I worked on Victoria's finances, organized her medical appointments, managed the household accounts. Handle this temporarily, he said, dropping a stack of files on my desk. I have a meeting with investors. You're good at organizing. The files were transaction records for 14 residential properties, contract negotiations, vendor relationships, tenant communications, everything the office manager had abandoned. How long is temporary? I asked. Julian was already walking away. A few weeks, maybe a month? Temporary lasted 3 years. I took over everything: transaction strategy, contract negotiations, personnel coordination, finance management, accounts receivable and payable. The first contract I signed for the company was worth $2.3 million. Julian's name was on the signature line. Mine was nowhere. My desk at Harrington Properties' third-floor corner position with a view of downtown Atlanta, I barely noticed, had no nameplate, no title, no salary line in the payroll system. When vendors asked who they were speaking with, I said, "This is Elena from Harrington Properties." Not Elena Castellano, office manager. Not Elena Harrington, director of operations. Just Elena, the woman who handled things. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself Julian would formalize my position once I proved my value. I told myself the lack of salary was just an oversight. We were married. What was his was mine. The bank account was joint. Except the bank account wasn't joint. Not really. Julian's name was primary. Mine was authorized user. I learned the difference when I tried to transfer money for groceries one month, and the transaction was declined. Insufficient authorization level. November 2018. Late evening. Rain drummed against the third-floor windows of Harrington Properties' office. Everyone else had gone home hours ago. I stayed because the quarterly payroll reports were due, and I was the one who managed the project fund, the budget Julian had allocated for independent contractors and consultants. I opened the spreadsheet, scrolled through names I recognized, then one I didn't. Chloe Miller, independent consultant, salary $4,500 per month, bank account number for direct deposit. I didn't remember hiring anyone named Chloe Miller. I would have remembered. I managed every contract, every vendor, every consultant invoice. I searched the shared drive. No contract, no deliverables, no work product, no email trail, no proposals, no project scope, no communication record at all. Just payments, monthly. October 2017 through June 2018. Then a gap. Then again starting September 2018. 9 months of payments, $40,500. From the fund I managed. Authorized by my access. Signed off in the system under my user credentials. I sat very still. The rain got louder. The office lights hummed overhead, that fluorescent buzz you stop hearing until you're alone in a building at night, and it's the only sound besides your breathing. Chloe Miller. I didn't know her, but someone did. Someone had added her to payroll. Someone had created the recurring payment. Someone had used my fund authorization to pay her $40,000 for work that didn't exist. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I didn't call Julian and demand an explanation. I opened a new Excel file, saved it as evidence.xlsx, and I started documenting. First entry. November 14th, 2018, 11:47 p.m. Chloe Miller, independent consultant. $4,500 monthly. No contract, no deliverables. 9 months running total, $40,500. Payment source, project fund. My authorization, my managed account. Second entry. My own unpaid hours. 3 years of full-time work. No salary, no title, no credit. Third entry, contracts I'd written. Vendor relationships I'd built. Tenant retention strategy I'd created. All credited to Julian in investor presentations. I didn't know what I'd do with this file. I didn't have a plan. I just knew that if the numbers told the truth, I needed to be the one keeping count. I saved the file to a USB drive I kept in my purse. Not on the shared drive, not on the office computer. Somewhere they couldn't delete it. That file would grow to 47 entries over the next 5 months. 47 pieces of proof that I'd built an empire that bore his name. 4 months later, Vanguard Consulting Group would call with an interview invitation, and Julian would make sure I never answered it. The morning everything would either break open or close forever was 18 weeks away. The 60th rejection would have broken me, but the 60th application sent at 2 in the morning while my nephew slept and my evidence file held 47 proofs of theft that one finally answered. November 2017 through March 2018. 5 months measured in silent nights, huddled in the corner of the Harrington living room laptop, glow the only light. Small reading lamp angled away from the hallway so no one would see I was awake. Raymond. 4 years old. Marcus and Chloe's son dumped at the family home more often than not slept in the bedroom next to mine. I'd become his de facto caregiver, the same way I'd become everything else in that house by being their unpaid, unnamed expected. Every night after Victoria went to bed, after Arthur stopped pacing, after Julian returned from wherever he went when he said he was working late, I opened my laptop and wrote cover letters. Application 14, Application 29, Application 43. Each one a plea typed in whispers. See me, hire me, save me. I am writing to express my strong interest in the HR coordinator position. My experience managing complex operational systems and personnel coordination has prepared me to contribute meaningfully to your organization. I never mentioned that my experience was unpaid. I never mentioned that my desk had no nameplate. I reframed 3 years of exploitation into bullet points that sounded like career building. The rejections came in waves, automated emails with the warmth of a form letter and the finality of a door closing. Thank you for your application. We have decided to move forward with other candidates. 37 of those. 14 companies never responded at all. 8 invited phone screens that went nowhere. I think they heard the desperation in my voice despite my practiced calm. But the evidence file kept growing. Entry 32. Julian presented my vendor negotiation strategy to investors under his name, February 2019. Entry 41. Discovered second payment to C. Miller. Different account. March 2019. Entry 47. Calculated my unpaid labor market value over 3 years. Approximately $180,000. 47 pieces of documentation, not just hurt, proof. March 27th, 11:43 p.m. I was in my corner. Raymond's small snores came through the wall. He had a cold breathing heavy through his mouth. The house smelled like the mentholated vapor rub I'd put on his chest before bed. My laptop battery was at 14%. I had 3 more applications queued to send before I could sleep. My phone vibrated on the carpet beside me. Email notification from Vanguard Consulting Group HR. My hands shook opening it. The screen was too bright. I had to squint to read. Subject: Vanguard Consulting Group final interview invitation. Dear Ms. Castellano, we are pleased to invite you to our final round interview for the HR coordinator position. Based on your phone screen and Zoom interview performance, we would like to meet you in person. Position: HR coordinator. Salary: $58,000. Annual interview date: Monday, April 14th, 2018, 10 a.m. Location: 1800 Peachtree Street, Suite 1200, Atlanta, GA. I read that email 30 times, not because I didn't understand it, because I was afraid it would disappear if I looked away. You don't understand what hope feels like when you've lived without it for 4 years. It's not warm. It's terrifying. It's a trapdoor opening under your feet when you'd convinced yourself the floor was solid. $58,000. A real salary. My name on a real paycheck. Benefits. Professional development budget. An office in Midtown where no one would call me a parasite or expect me to organize their pillboxes or manage their properties for free. I saved the email to 3 different folders. I took a screenshot. I forwarded it to myself at a secondary email address I'd created months ago, one Julian didn't know about, or so I thought. Then I sat very still in the dark and tried not to make a sound that would wake anyone while I cried into my sleeve. March 28th, 5:30 a.m. I waited until I heard Arthur's shower running. His schedule was the most predictable, always up at 5:15, shower at 5:20, dressed, and reading the Wall Street Journal by 5:45. I slipped out of the house and drove to Harrington Properties office in the car I was allowed to use for errands. The building was empty. The printer hummed too loud at 5:47 a.m. I held my breath, watching the door, terrified someone would appear and ask what I was doing. The paper came out warm. I held it like it was made of glass. HR coordinator. $58,000. Benefits. Professional development. Real job. Real salary. Real name on real paycheck. I folded that paper into a square smaller than my palm, my whole future 2 inches wide. By 6:15 a.m. I was back at the house. Raymond was still asleep, his breathing easier now, the cold loosening. I went to my bedroom closet and pulled out the black flats I'd worn to my last real job interview 4 years ago, back when I was someone with a career, instead of someone who existed to serve. I peeled up the removable insole, tucked the folded paper underneath, pressed the insole back down, put the shoes in the back corner of the closet behind winter boots I never wore. 17 days until April 14th. 408 hours. 24,480 minutes until 10 a.m. I knelt there on the closet floor and whispered to the hidden paper, "Stay there. Don't let them find you. You're the only door I have." "Aunt Elena." Raymond's sleepy voice came from the doorway. "You awake?" "Go back to sleep, baby," I said. "It's early." "You were gone. I woke up and you were gone." I stood, smoothed my hair, walked to him and touched his forehead. Still warm, but better. "I just went to get something from the office. I'm here now." He wrapped his small arms around my waist. 4 years old and already learning that people leave. "I'm not going anywhere," I lied. Because in 17 days, if everything went right, I was going to walk out that door and never come back. I had 17 days to prepare. Julian had 17 days to destroy me. I didn't know that while I practiced interview answers in the bathroom mirror, with the water running to mask my voice, he was already reading my emails, watching my hope grow so he could time the kill perfectly. April 14th, 2018 would be the morning everything either opened or closed forever. The morning of April 14th, 2018. I walked into the kitchen wearing a borrowed navy blazer, and my mother-in-law started dying on command. 8:30 a.m. I'd planned this entrance for 17 days, timing calculated around when Arthur finished breakfast, when Victoria had her first coffee, when Julian checked his phone before heading to the office. I wore the blazer a college friend had lent me with tags still attached so I could return it. White blouse from Goodwill, black slacks I'd owned since my last real job, hair in a neat bun, interview folder clutched against my ribs like armor. They stopped mid-conversation when I appeared. 3 faces turning toward me in synchronized surprise. The kitchen smelled like coffee, and the expensive bread Arthur preferred the kind that cost $8 a loaf that I bought with their grocery allowance and never ate myself. "I have an appointment this morning," I said. My voice came out steady, despite my heart trying to break through my chest. "I need to leave by 9. Victoria set down her coffee cup with the precise clink of porcelain on marble. Her eyes narrowed. "What kind of appointment where? A professional meeting?" I said. Not a lie, not quite truth. "Columbus, I'll be back this afternoon." Columbus was a lie. The interview was Midtown. But I'd learned to lie in this house the same way I'd learned to be invisible survival skills you practice until they become reflex. Victoria's hand flew to her chest. Not immediately. She waited 3 seconds. Just long enough for the words professional meeting to land. Just long enough for the threat to register. Then she gasped a sharp intake of breath that could have won awards. "My heart," she said. The words came out strangled. Perfect performance. "The doctor said stress could—" She stumbled from her chair toward the living room sofa, one hand pressed dramatically over her sternum. I'd watched this performance for 4 years. I knew every beat. The stumble that wasn't quite a fall. The groan that suggested mortal pain without committing to actual emergency room territory. The way she positioned herself on the sofa, where she could still see the front door and monitor anyone trying to leave. "I need someone here," Victoria said, breathing hard. "Family." Arthur rose from the table. He didn't rush to Victoria. He positioned himself between me and the front door. His body language said everything before he opened his mouth. "You cannot leave at this time," he announced. Weather report voice. Neutral, final. "A good daughter-in-law stays home to care for family. Don't embarrass your husband with this selfishness." I looked at the clock above the stove. 8:42 a.m. 73 minutes until the bus. 73 minutes until the interview that might be the last door I'd ever get to walk through. Here's what they didn't understand. I'd already lost everything. I had nothing left to gamble except the future. Julian stepped forward from the kitchen doorway. He'd been watching us like a hawk tapping his phone screen with a cold, calculated smirk. "Save your breath, Elena," he said, holding up his device so I could see the screen. I saw the confirmation email from Vanguard on our shared network link. "You think you're escaping? I just locked your personal device out of the family bank access and flagged your transit account for security review. You're completely stranded." He stood there looking down at me with absolute contempt. He didn't need to yell. His calm was the cruelest part. He genuinely believed that without his money and his approval, I was nothing but a helpless dependent who couldn't survive a single day in Atlanta. From the sofa, Victoria kept up her shallow breathing, while Arthur remained blocked at the front entrance, solid as stone. They thought they had trapped me. They thought cutting off my digital access meant cutting off my legs. The clock read 8:51, 64 minutes. I looked at the interview folder in my hands. The paper inside my resume, my references, my carefully written cover letter explaining gaps in employment without mentioning I'd been unpaid labor for 4 years, trembled slightly. My hands were shaking. I looked at the front door Arthur guarded. I looked at the back door through the kitchen, the door they used for trash removal, the door that led to the alley, the door they'd forgotten existed because they never took out their own garbage. I opened my mouth. "Yes," I said quietly. "You're right." Julian's expression shifted, smug satisfaction. He'd won. Of course he'd won. He always won. "Good," he said. "Now put that folder down and help your mother-in-law to bed. She needs her medication." I turned, not toward the front door they guarded, not toward the living room where Victoria performed dying. Toward the back door they forgot existed. I walked through the kitchen, past Julian, past the breakfast table still scattered with their expensive bread and imported jam, past the marble counters I'd cleaned every day for 4 years. I reached the back door. I opened it. April morning gray light spilled in. The air smelled like rain coming. 47 degrees. I didn't have a coat. I only had a borrowed blazer and a folder and 63 minutes until a bus I'd never catch. Behind me, I heard Julian's voice. "What are you?" I stepped through. The door closed behind me at 8:52 a.m. I heard the automatic lock click. I found out Julian had canceled my ticket at 9:03 a.m., standing at the bus stop with $43 in my account and 57 minutes to walk 3.2 miles in borrowed shoes. The notification appeared on my phone screen when I opened the transit app to check the arrival time. "Your ticket has been canceled. Refund will be processed in 3 to 5 business days." I stared at those words for 10 seconds. Then I opened my bank app. Available balance $43.27. A taxi to Midtown would cost minimum $35 plus tip. I didn't have enough. Uber required a credit card Julian monitored. The bus was gone. The interview was at 10 a.m. 3.2 miles. 57 minutes. Borrowed interview shoes with heels I hadn't broken in. I started walking. 9:07 a.m. I put the phone in my blazer pocket and moved. Not running would make me sweat through everything, arrive looking desperate. Fast walk, purposeful, like I'd planned this route all along. Atlanta mornings in April are deceptive. 47 degrees when you step outside, but humid, the air thick with moisture that makes cheap fabric cling. By block 3, the blazer was trapping heat. By block 5, my feet ached where the shoes rubbed wrong. My phone started vibrating. Julian, calling. I declined, kept walking. He called again at 9:14. Again at 9:19. Again at 9:23. I declined every time. Whatever he wanted to say, threats, manipulation, orders to return home, it could wait. I had one direction forward. I passed landmarks of my captivity. The grocery store where I'd bought Victoria's specific brand of yogurt every Tuesday for 4 years. The park where I'd taken Raymond on afternoons when Marcus and Chloe dumped him at the family home. The bank where Julian's name was primary on every account and mine was authorized user, if that. Peachtree Street stretched ahead. I counted blocks instead of minutes. Block 1, block 4, block 9. Don't think about the blisters forming. Don't think about the interview folder getting damp under my arm from sweat. Don't think about arriving looking like someone who'd walked 3 miles because her husband sabotaged her transportation. Just walk. 9:38 a.m. I passed Harrington Properties. The building stood 3 stories, red brick gold lettering on the sign, Harrington Properties. Julian Harrington Principal, established 2014. Julian's truck sat in the parking lot. Lights on in the 3rd floor windows. My old desk, the one without a nameplate, the one where I'd signed contracts worth millions in his name. I stopped for 10 seconds, looked up at those windows. 3 years. My vendor negotiations. My tenant retention strategies. My operational systems. Every dollar I'd saved them, every relationship I'd built, every late night I'd worked while they slept, all of it bearing his signature. Then I kept walking. That building didn't own me anymore. Those 3.2 miles weren't distance. They were the gap between who I'd been and who I'd become, measured in blisters and borrowed shoes. 9:58 a.m., I reached Vanguard. Inside the ground floor restroom, I didn't look like a corporate candidate, I looked like a survivor. I ripped rough paper towels from the dispenser, soaking them in freezing water to press against my burning neck and face. With trembling fingers, I forced my wild hair back into its pins and smoothed down the damp fabric of my blazer. The reflection in the mirror was raw, but my posture was unbroken. I had walked every single inch of that highway to prove I wasn't what they called me. At exactly 10 o'clock, the heavy glass doors of the 12th floor conference room opened. Constance Pemberton stood there, flanked by the senior operations panel. They saw the ruin of my shoes. They saw the exhaustion in my eyes. But when I took my seat and began breaking down the exact asset strategies and cost reductions I had covertly mastered at Harrington Properties, the room went entirely silent. I gave them raw expertise stripped of family politics. And when Constance leaned forward to ask why I wanted this so badly, I looked her straight in the eye and gave her the only truth that mattered. I needed a title that belonged to me and a life they could never cancel again. 11:30 a.m., Constance stood, extended her hand. "You're a strong candidate, Elena," she said. "We'll be in touch by Friday." Diana nodded. "You answered every question with real experience. That's rare." I shook their hands, walked to the elevator on legs that were shaking from the walk and the adrenaline, and the first breath I'd taken in years that felt like oxygen instead of obligation. The elevator descended. I leaned against the wall and let myself feel it. I'd made it. 3.2 miles. Canceled ticket. Sabotaged transportation. Bleeding feet. I'd made it to this room, performed well, was seen as competent. As real. For the first time in years, I could breathe. I didn't know I was already drowning. I didn't know that at 9:15 that morning, while I was bleeding through borrowed shoes on Peachtree Street, counting blocks, refusing to stop, Julian had sent an email. Anonymous. Professional. Flagging me as unstable, warning Vanguard about character issues, providing just enough detail to sound credible. I walked out of Vanguard at 11:35, believing I'd earned it. Constance's handshake. Diana's nod. The skyline view from that conference room. I thought that was my future opening up. I didn't know that email was already in the HR system, already flagged, already closing every door. Friday would bring the rejection. But the truth would stay buried for 7 years. I checked my email every 20 minutes for 4 days, and when the response finally came, it took 3 seconds to read the rejection and 4 years to learn it was a lie. Friday, April 18th, 2019. Constance had said by Friday. I woke at 7 a.m. and opened my email before I opened my eyes. Nothing from Vanguard. 7:20, 8:05, 9:30. Every 20 minutes, my fingers swiping down to reload, watching for the notification that would change everything. Victoria watched from the kitchen. "Where did you really go Monday morning?" "That wasn't a dentist appointment. Julian says you took the bus somewhere." "I had a meeting," I said, not looking up. "Professional development opportunity." "Development for what? You don't have a profession." I didn't answer. Just refreshed my email. Still nothing. Julian came home at 5:30, saw me checking my phone and smiled. Not kind. The smile of someone watching a mouse in a trap. "Expecting something important?" he asked. He knew. I could see it. He was enjoying watching me hope. 11:59 p.m. Friday. I sat in the dark phone screen, glowing, refreshing one more time before midnight. Nothing. My stomach dropped. Saturday, April 19th, Sunday, April 20th, Monday, April 21st. I barely ate, barely slept. Phone always in my hand, refresh, refresh, refresh. Raymond playing nearby, asking, "Aunt Elena said why you keep looking at phone?" "I'm waiting for important news, baby. It'll come soon. Fly, hope, prayer." Victoria's comments sharpened. "This obsession is unhealthy," she said Sunday. "Whatever you're waiting for, let it go." Julian just watched, sipped his coffee, smiled that knowing smile. Monday night, I told myself corporate emails don't send weekends. Tuesday, it'll come Tuesday. Hope is the cruelest form of torture when someone else holds the key and you don't even know the lock exists. Tuesday morning, April 22nd, 2019, 9:47 a.m. My phone buzzed. Email notification Vanguard Consulting Group. My hands shook. Subject line Re-HR Coordinator position. Dear Elena, thank you for your interest in the HR Coordinator position with Vanguard Consulting Group. After careful consideration, we have decided to move forward with another candidate whose qualifications more closely match our current needs. We appreciate the time you took to interview with us and wish you the best in your career search. Sincerely, Vanguard HR Team. 3 sentences, professional, generic, final. I read it again, then again, searching for explanation. Another candidate, more closely match. Current needs. Which qualification was I missing? I had SHRMCP. 3 years of operational experience. I'd answered every question with real examples. Constance had said strong candidate. Diana had nodded. I walked 3.2 miles in borrowed shoes. I bled through pantyhose. I composed myself with wet paper towels and walked into that conference room competent and professional. Where did I fail? I sat on the floor phone in my lap dissecting every word. Another candidate whose qualifications more closely match our current needs. What was I missing? A master's degree. More experience. Different skills. But there was no puzzle, just a rejection, corporate standard. I whispered to the empty room, I failed. Somehow, I don't know how, but I failed. What I didn't know, what I wouldn't discover for 7 years was this. That morning, April 22nd at 9:15 a.m., Vanguard Consulting Group HR sent an email. Subject, congratulations, HR Coordinator position offer. Dear Elena Castellano, we are pleased to offer you the position of HR Coordinator at Vanguard Consulting Group. Despite an anonymous complaint, we received our interview panel unanimously agreed that your qualifications, experience, and interview performance demonstrate exactly the competence and integrity we're seeking. Position HR Coordinator, salary $58,000 annual, start date April 28, 2019. Please confirm your acceptance by April 24th. Welcome to Vanguard. I didn't know the real email. The acceptance, the $58,000, the start date. April 28th was sitting in a hidden folder 3 clicks away, blocked by recovery code access I didn't know Julian had. At 9:18 a.m., Julian Harrington, using recovery code access to my secondary email account access I didn't know existed, intercepted that message. Moved it to a hidden folder labeled archive/2019, marked it as read, deleted the notification. 3 keystrokes. At 9:45 a.m., he crafted a perfect replica of Vanguard's rejection template. Same header, same signature, professional generic corporate standard. He sent it to my inbox at 9:47 a.m. I received only the fake rejection. The real acceptance, my future, my salary, my escape sat in a folder I didn't know existed, blocked by access I didn't know Julian had. I just knew I'd failed. 11:30 a.m. I was still sitting on the floor, phone in hand, showing the rejection, when Julian walked in from the kitchen. Coffee mug in hand. He saw my expression, hollow, defeated, hope extinguished. He smiled, didn't hide it. Not allowed, he said, calm, satisfied, sipped his coffee. I told you so. He didn't ask what happened. Didn't offer comfort. He just stood there enjoying my broken hope. I looked up at him, saw the pleasure in his face, saw that he was glad I'd failed. Didn't know he'd caused it, just knew he was happy about it. That realization added a new layer to my grief. Maybe now you'll stop with these foolish ideas, he said, walking away, and focus on your actual responsibilities. I turned off my phone and accepted that I'd failed. Julian walked away smiling, pleased that I'd learned my place. What I didn't know, what I wouldn't know for 7 years, was that I'd earned that job. I'd walked every inch of that distance and earned it. And he'd stolen my acceptance with 3 keystrokes before I ever saw it. The real email sat in a folder labeled archive/2019 waiting. 2 months later, Julian would hand me divorce papers and call me a thief. 6 weeks after the rejection, that wasn't real, Julian handed me divorce papers accusing me of stealing $47,000 from the company I'd run for free. May 8, 2019. Fletcher and Associates Law Office, downtown Atlanta. Leather chairs, mahogany table, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city I'd walked 3.2 miles through to reach an interview I'd already won without knowing it. Martin Fletcher, Julian's divorce attorney. 48, slick and expensive, in a suit that cost more than I'd earned in the last year combined, slid documents across the table. Mrs. Harrington, he said these bank records show $47,000 in unauthorized withdrawals bearing your signature. I looked at the statements. Altered. Dates I'd been managing the fund withdrawal slips with signatures that looked close enough to mine to pass, forged all of it. Julian sat beside Martin, arms crossed. I trusted you with company finances, he said, voice even, practiced. You betrayed that trust. This is theft. 3 years of unpaid work. No paycheck, no W-2, no employment contract, no business card, no nameplate on a desk, no proof I'd worked there at all except the work itself, and Julian's name was on all of it. He'd built the perfect trap. You have 2 options, Martin said. Settle the divorce, quietly waive all property claims, no alimony, clean break, and Mr. Harrington drops the criminal complaint. Or we proceed with theft charges and asset recovery litigation. The difference between employee and thief is a paycheck stub. I had none. Julian knew that when he spent 3 years making sure I'd never have one. I need time, I said. You have 1 week, Martin said. Then we file with the district attorney. May 15th, 2019. I found Vivian Gallagher through a legal aid referral, 45 commercial litigation specialist in a second-floor walk-up office in Midtown, reputation for fighting wealthy opponents on contingency when the case warranted it. She listened while I explained worked 3 years as unpaid operations manager husband, now claiming I embezzled from company I can't prove I worked for facing criminal charges or forced divorce settlement for 0 assets. Tell me what you actually did at this company, Vivian said. Day to day for 3 years. Everything, I said. Transaction strategy, contract negotiations, personnel coordination, vendor relationships, financial management. I ran it. His name was on the building. Mine was nowhere. Do you have documentation, emails, files, anything? I have a USB, I said. Evidence file I started keeping in November. 47 entries. Financial documents, contracts I wrote, work I did, all of it. Yeah. Vivienne leaned back. That's good. That's leverage. But here's the problem. Fighting embezzlement accusations in court costs $15,000 to $25,000 minimum. Months of litigation, discovery depositions, expert witnesses. How much do you have? $340? She was quiet for 10 seconds. Then, he's using the criminal threat as leverage. He knows you can't defend yourself without employment proof you don't have. You have 2 choices, sign the divorce and walk away with nothing, or fight and potentially end up with a criminal record that destroys any future employment. So I sign and get nothing. 3 years of work, nothing. You sign and avoid a criminal record, Vivian said. In your position, that's not nothing. I stared at her desk. Oak-scarred, stacked with case files for people who probably had stories like mine trapped between institutional systems designed to protect people with resources. Before I sign, I said slowly, I want you to hold something. I pulled the USB from my purse. Complete copy of my evidence file. Financial documents showing fabricated consultant payments to Julian's mistress. Contracts I wrote. Bank statements. Everything I built that he's claiming to own. Just hold it. In case I need it someday. Vivian took the USB, wrote my name on a label, locked it in her desk drawer. Insurance policy, she said. Smart. May through June, Martin Fletcher's office sent increasingly threatening letters. Sign by June 30th, or criminal complaint filed July 1st. I had no choice. I couldn't afford to fight. I couldn't prove employment. A theft charge would end any chance of rebuilding a career. On June 28th, I told Vivian to negotiate the best she could get. She got me nothing, because nothing was all Julian was offering. July 17th, 2019, 2:30 p.m., Fulton County Courthouse, Atlanta. I sat across from Julian in a courtroom that smelled like floor polish and institutional defeat. Victoria and Arthur flanked him, watching. Martin Fletcher beside them, leather briefcase, open papers, arranged precisely. The judge read the terms aloud. Elena Castellano relinquishes all claims to marital property, business assets, real estate holdings, retirement accounts. Waives alimony. Waives spousal support. Acknowledges no entitlement to Harrington properties or related holdings past, present, or future. Mrs. Harrington, the judge said, looking at me over reading glasses. Do you understand you are waiving all claims to marital property and business assets? Yes, Your Honor. My voice came out steady. I understand. I understand I have no choice. I understand I'm signing away proof I existed. Martin slid the papers across the table. I signed my name on the line. The judge stamped it. Divorce granted. Julian stood. Victoria smiled. Arthur nodded approval. They walked out together, family united, problem solved. I sat in the empty courtroom for 5 minutes after they left, legally erased from 4 years of marriage that had consumed 7 years of labor. I left that courthouse with nothing, except the USB Vivian held, except the memory of every contract I wrote, except the truth. 3:15 p.m., courthouse steps, July heat rising from pavement. I stood there with one suitcase containing everything I owned, 5 days of clothes, laptop, phone charger, toiletries, folder with my SHRMCP certificate, $127 in birthday money I'd saved over 3 years. Bank account $340.27 total. No card Julian's name. No credit cards, all joint canceled. No apartment I'd lived in their home. No job references I could use without validating the embezzlement story. But the USB was safe with Vivian. Evidence file, financial documents, contracts showing my work, bank statements proving Chloe's fabricated salary, proof of everything Julian claimed didn't exist. I called Charlotte college friend dental hygienist in East Atlanta, someone who'd offered her studio apartment floor without asking questions I couldn't answer. Can I stay on your floor? I asked. Few weeks, Max. I'll find something, I promise. Come over, Charlotte said. Address is the same. I picked up my suitcase, walked to the bus stop. Julian drove back to Buckhead with his parents, believing he'd erased me completely. No assets, no references, no proof I'd ever worked, no way to rebuild. He was right about everything except one thing: Vivian had the USB and someday I'd need it. 23 days on the floor, 60 applications, and a company that would call back twice. I slept on Charlotte's wooden floor for 23 nights and applied to 460 jobs. And the only thing that kept me moving forward was knowing I'd already survived worse. July 17th, 2019. Evening. Charlotte's studio in East Atlanta smelled like dental hygiene products and instant coffee. She handed me a blanket without asking questions I couldn't answer. Floor's yours, bathroom's there. I work early shifts, so I'm quiet mornings. Stay long as you need. Few weeks, Max, I'll find something. Don't promise, Charlotte said. Just rest tonight. I set up my corner. Blanket folded as mattress. Suitcase as pillow. Laptop charging. This was home. Wooden floor. Courthouse that afternoon. Blanket from a friend. Rock bottom. Start here. July 18th, 6 a.m. Charlotte's alarm, her quiet movements, door closing. I open my laptop. Application 1. Staff accountant, $42,000. I am writing to express my strong interest. Application 2. Administrative assistant, $35,000. Application 3. Office manager, $38,000. I couldn't list Harrington Properties without validating Julian's embezzlement story. My resume showed 2015 to 2019 as family caregiving with freelance bookkeeping maintained. Gap explained, not erased. Truth twisted. 20 applications that first day. Rice and eggs for dinner. Tap water. Wooden floor with laptop on my chest, refreshing email every 20 minutes. No responses. July 19th. 20 more. July 20th. 20 more. 10 days straight. 200 applications. 3 responses. 2 rejections, 1 phone screen. Can you explain this gap in employment 2015 to 2019? Family caregiving, maintained bookkeeping skills through freelance, ready to return full-time now. They said they'd be in touch, they never were. Money dwindled. 340 became 280 after food, 220 after toiletries, 180 after phone bill, 11 days on Charlotte's floor. You learn what you're made of when you have $180 a wooden floor and the knowledge that no one, not your family, not your husband, not the system, is coming to save you. August 3rd, Raymond's 5th birthday. Dollar store, $150 for a card, cartoon dinosaurs. Sat on the steps and wrote, "Happy 5th birthday, Raymond. I think about you every day. Love, Aunt Elena." Address to Harrington Home, Buckhead. No return address, just EC Atlanta. Post office. No return address, the clerk asked. No return address. Can't give them a way to find me. Can't risk Julian knowing where I am. I dropped the card in the blue mailbox. 178 remaining. Application 247 waiting. He probably won't get this. Victoria will throw it away. But I need him to know I didn't forget. August 9th, day 23. Phone rang. Is this Elena Castellano? This is Hendricks and Associates accounting firm in Buckhead. Could you come in for an interview tomorrow? I said yes before she finished asking. August 10th. Borrowed Charlotte's blouse, wore my April interview slacks. Bus to Buckhead. Small office, 3 accountants, 1 manager, 1 partner. This gap 2015 to 2019, what were you doing? Family caregiving, maintained bookkeeping through freelance, ready to return full-time. Software proficiency. Why accounting? I answered within limits, maintained skills, need stability, good with systems. The partner looked at my resume, then at me. 38,000 annual. Health benefits after 90 days, 2 weeks PTO. Start August 19th. Can you start then? Yes. No negotiation, no hesitation. Thank you, I'll be there. First real paycheck in 7 years. I called Charlotte. I got it, job, 38,000, I can pay rent. Good. Now find a place before you wear a hole in my floor. August 12th. $380 a month. Shared house, East Atlanta. 8 by 10 feet. No AC. Window-facing brick wall. Shared bathroom, kitchen, 3 housemates. Loud, thin walls. Signed the lease, first month plus deposit $760 total. The landlord handed me a key. Charlotte helped carry my suitcase 3 blocks. The room mattress on floor, Craigslist, $40. Small desk, curbside free, 1 chair, overhead bulb. This is yours now, Charlotte said. Your name on the lease. That matters. 23 days on your floor, thank you. Anytime, you know where I am. We hugged, brief, both crying. She left. I sat on the mattress, hot, humid, loud, small, but the lease had my name. Elena Castellano, not Harrington. I whispered to the ceiling. First room, my name. First job, my choice. 38,000 a year. 380 a month. I don't know if I'll make it, but I'll try. 23 days, 460 applications, 1 yes. That was the exact math of starting over from nothing in America. The $38,000 wasn't climbing upward. It was approximately what I would have earned working legitimately at Harrington Properties from 2015 to 2019. I wasn't rising. I was finally receiving the salary level I'd always deserved and been denied. COVID-19 took my accounting job on March 13th, 27 months after I'd started, and the first thing I felt wasn't panic. It was the cold recognition that I'd survived worse. Friday the 13th. The partner's face filled my laptop screen on Zoom, pixelated and apologetic. Due to COVID-19, Hendricks is closing temporarily, he said. 3 positions eliminated immediately. Elena, I'm sorry you're included in this reduction. Severance. 2 weeks pay $1460 pre-tax. Unemployment benefits available. The Zoom window closed. I sat in my $380 room with the window facing brick and calculated. $2,800 saved over 7 months by living on 60% of a $38,000 salary, saving 20%, aggressively preparing for the next disaster, because there's always a next disaster when you've learned instability is baseline. Unemployment 365 weekly Federal CARES Act plus Georgia state total around $695 a week. Enough for rent, food, phone. Savings untouched as emergency buffer. 6 to 7 months survival if careful. I didn't panic. I'd been here before. March 2020. Okay, I've started from less. The pandemic scared everyone because it made their lives unstable. I'd been unstable for 5 years. This was just a new flavor of the same uncertainty I'd learned to metabolize. March through May. Atlanta locked down, job market frozen, hiring stopped across industries. I applied anyway, 15 to 20 applications daily to whatever existed, mostly automated rejections or silence. Unemployment covered the basics. $695 weekly meant I could eat, pay rent, keep my phone on. The world felt apocalyptic. I felt practiced. April 2020, Raymond's 6th birthday. I walked to the post office in a cloth mask I'd sewn from an old t-shirt. Bought a card, cartoon superheroes, this time $1.75. Happy 6th birthday, Raymond. I hope you're safe. Love, Aunt Elena. No return address. EC Atlanta. Mailed to Harrington family home in Buckhead. Year 5 of cards sent into the void. Never a response. Never acknowledgement. I maintained the tradition anyway because he needed to know someone remembered even if he never knew it was me. May slid into June. Application 340, 360, 400. The world slowly reopening, businesses tentatively hiring again. Nothing for me yet. June 18th, 2020. Until 7 a.m. Couldn't sleep. Scrolling LinkedIn on my laptop, blue light washing the brick wall outside my window. Posting appeared: HR Coordinator, Vanguard Consulting Group, Atlanta. 48,000 annual, down from 58,000 pre-pandemic. Benefits. Remote flexibility available. I stared at the screen. Vanguard. Same company, same position. The company that rejected me April 2019 after I'd walked 3.2 miles in borrowed shoes, after Constance had shaken my hand and said strong candidate, after I'd bled through pantyhose and composed myself in a bathroom mirror. The rejection email 4 days later. Julian's smile when he found me with my phone defeated. I stared at that posting for 3 hours. Didn't close the tab. Didn't look away. Just sat cross-legged on my mattress with the laptop burning hot on my thighs, reading the job description over and over. Same company, they said no before. But I was different now. Divorced. Survived pandemic unemployment. Harder. Earned. Nothing left to lose. 5:14 a.m. light, starting to show gray through the window. I decided. New email address. Not the secondary account Julian had recovery code access to. Clean start e.castellano.hr@gmail.com. Current East Atlanta address, not Harrington home. Updated resume. Hendricks and Associates, 2019 to 2020. Brief description. SHRMCP, self-taught certification prominent. Cover letter emphasizing resilience, adaptability. COVID remote work capability. I wrote differently than 2019. Harder. No pleading. Just competence earned through survival. 5:47 a.m. I clicked submit. Whispered to the laptop screen in the gray morning, second chance, please. I'll make it count. I promise I'll make it stick this time. June 21. Phone screen. Different recruiter than 2019. Professional brief. Move to next round. June 28. Zoom panel interview. 3 people. None from my 2019 panel. Constance and Diana weren't there, different team entirely. Questions about conflict resolution, remote work, adaptation, HR systems knowledge. I answered with examples from Hendricks, from managing chaos, from building systems in unstable environments. July 1st. Reference checks. Hendricks' partner gave positive review. They called target my brief retail job from 2019 I'd barely mentioned. No one mentioned Harrington Properties. That door stayed closed. July 2nd, 2020. 11:23 a.m. Email notification, Vanguard Consulting Group. My hands shook opening it. Subject offer letter. Dear Elena Castellano, we are pleased to offer you the position of HR Coordinator at Vanguard Consulting Group. Position HR Coordinator. Salary $48,000 annual, benefits, health insurance after 90 days, dental vision, 401k match, 2 weeks, PTO. Start date, July 13th, 2020. Work arrangement, remote, first with Atlanta. Office access, when safe. Please confirm your acceptance by July 6th. I sat on my floor. Same mattress, same brick wall outside the window. Different email address this time. Different person. Same building that had rejected me 15 months ago, though I didn't understand why then, and didn't know what this meant now. I didn't know this was the same building. Same company. Different door. The one that would finally let me in because Julian's hands weren't on this entrance. I whispered to the empty room. Same company, different door. This time I made it through. This time I'll make it stick. I promise. I replied to the email before I could second guess. I am pleased to accept this offer. Thank you for this opportunity. I look forward to starting July 13th. Sent. I sat there for 20 minutes, laptop open, offer letter still on screen, letting it sink in. 48,000. Benefits. Real job. Same building where I'd interviewed, bleeding through borrowed shoes. Same company that had said no. But they'd said yes this time. I didn't know I'd walked into the same building where my stolen acceptance email still sat in a hidden folder labeled Archive/2019. I didn't know that in 6 years I'd discover the truth about April 2019. I didn't know this wasn't a second chance, it was the universe correcting Julian's sabotage through a door he'd never thought to lock. I just knew I'd finally made it through. July 13th, 2020 would be the first day of a climb that wouldn't stop for 5 years. I walked into Vanguard on July 13th, 2020, through a different entrance than I'd used in 2019, and because the pandemic made everything remote, no one knew I'd been rejected by this building before. Monday, 8 a.m. I logged into Vanguard's systems from my East Atlanta apartment. Same mattress on the floor, same brick wall, window laptop balanced on the small desk someone had left curbside. Orientation happened via Zoom. HR, coordinator role processing new hire paperwork, scheduling virtual interviews, benefits enrollment, employee relations, documentation. Same Midtown Atlanta building address on my email signature. But I never physically entered. The pandemic created a digital door instead of the marble lobby where I'd walked with bleeding feet 15 months earlier. Clean slate, new email system, new employee ID. No one from the 2019 recruitment team recognized my name from a rejected application filed before COVID existed. "Welcome, Elena," the orientation lead said through my laptop speakers. "You'll be handling recruitment coordination, benefits, admin, new hire, onboarding. Remote first for now, office access when safe." I set up my email signature: Elena Castellano, HR Coordinator, Vanguard Consulting Group, Atlanta, GA. My name, my title, real. Same building, different door, digital instead of physical. No one here knew I'd walked these halls before. July through October. I worked like someone who had something to prove. 50 to 60-hour weeks invisible from my apartment. Processed 14 new hire packets in a day. Updated benefits, FAQ documents, scheduled interviews across time zones. Stayed online late solving recruitment bottlenecks. Remote work meant I could prove competence through output, not office politics. Every Slack message professional. Every process improvement proposal documented. Every difficult employee situation handled with composure. I asked strategic questions, volunteered for the HRIS system upgrade project, learned benefits administration software over weekends. My name started appearing on high-quality work consistently. October 2020. Slack. DM from Diana Sheffield, VP of Operations. "Elena, I keep seeing your name on excellent work. Can we set up monthly one-on-ones? Want to make sure you're supported." I stared at the message. Diana Sheffield. I recognized the name from my 2019 interview panel. VP Operations, auburn hair, handshake that felt like she meant it. She'd been one of the people who said I was a strong candidate before the rejection came. She didn't remember me. Why would she? She'd interviewed hundreds of candidates. I was just another applicant who didn't get the job. But here now I was, Elena Castellano, HR coordinator person who delivered excellent work. I accepted the meeting request. Second chances only work if no one knows it's your second try. I worked like it was my first shot and my last chance at the same time. November 18th, 2020. Monthly Zoom call with Diana. 30 minutes scheduled became 45. "You're very good at this work, Elena," Diana said. Her video showed her home office bookshelves behind her professional but human. "Have you thought about professional certification?" "SHRMCP," I said. "I've studied the material, taught myself in 2019. But the exam is $300 plus study materials and I can't afford it yet." "Company has tuition reimbursement," Diana said. "I'll sponsor your application. We cover it up front. You just study and pass. I think you're worth that investment." I almost cried on camera. Muted my microphone for 3 seconds, composed myself. "Thank you," I managed. Thank you. First time in my professional life someone invested in my growth instead of exploiting my labor. Not extraction, cultivation. November through December, I studied SHRMCP official materials. Evenings, weekends, laptop glow in the dark apartment. I already knew 70% from 2019 self-teaching, but official exam-tested depth. Employment law, compensation philosophy, organizational development, employee relations case studies. Vanguard reimbursed $300 exam fee, 200 study materials. Diana checked in weekly via Slack. How's studying? Need any time off to prep? Supportive, not controlling. Invested, not exploitative. I'd never experienced this professional relationship before. Someone building me up, expecting nothing but my success. Exam scheduled January 16th, 2021. I studied like my future depended on passing, because every credential without Julian's name on it proved I existed independently. January 16th, 2021. Computer-based testing center. First time I'd left my apartment for professional reasons since pandemic started. Mask, hand sanitizer, social distance. 4 hours. 160 questions. Everything I'd learned, lived, survived, compressed into multiple choice and situational judgment. The proctor said, "You may begin." I began. I knew this. I'd done this work. I'd built systems, managed people, navigated employment law, processed benefits, resolved conflicts. Now I got to prove it. January 22nd, 2021. Email notification SHRM. Congratulations, you have successfully passed the SHRM-CP examination. Your credential is now active. I read it 3 times sitting on my mattress. Passed. Official, real. February 2nd, 2021. Package arrived. Official certificate, heavy paper, embossed seal. Elena Castellano, SHRM-CP. My name. Just mine. No Julian, no Harrington, no invisible labor credited to someone else. Just Elena Castellano, SHRM-CP. I bought a frame at Target, $15, hung it on the wall next to my mattress, stared at my name printed on official professional certification, proof I was real, qualified, professional, independent of anyone who tried to erase me. I whispered to the certificate. For the first time I felt real. Not wife, not servant, not parasite, certified professional with my name alone on credentials no one could steal. Diana Sheffield was investing in the exact person she'd interviewed and recommended in April 2019. She just didn't know she was giving me the mentorship that should have started then. The universe was correcting something neither of us could see yet. She'd sat on that interview panel 15 months ago, seen my potential, said I was a strong candidate. Then the rejection came fake, but she didn't know that. Now she was cultivating the same talent she'd recognized, then unaware I was the candidate whose acceptance Julian had stolen. Same building, same company, different entrance. Second chance, that was really first chance finally delivered. I hung that SHR-MCP certificate on my wall in February 2021, thinking it was my first professional credential proof I'd finally become someone real. I didn't know I'd hung it in the same city the same year where Julian's company was starting to fail, without my invisible labor holding it together. I didn't know the universe was balancing accounts I couldn't see yet. The climb from coordinator to director would take 4 years and change my name twice more on office doors and email signatures. But first I had this Elena Castellano SHRMCP framed on a wall, mine. The promotion letter arrived on June 14th, 2021, 3 years to the day after I'd walked away from Buckhead. HR specialist, the letter read. Effective immediately. Annual salary $55,000. I read it twice in my cubicle before the truth settled. I was making more than Julian had paid me to manage his entire operation, and no one here knew I'd ever been anyone's wife. The climb happened faster than I'd planned. Diana Sheffield became my champion, putting my name forward for projects that mattered, meetings that counted. By October 2021, I'd processed enough restructurings and conflict resolutions that I could anticipate problems 3 moves ahead, the same skill I developed watching Julian's family maneuver around their conference table. The difference was here people valued it. Dr. Reina Torres entered my life that same month when I finally admitted I needed help sleeping. She was a therapist who specialized in high-functioning professionals, which felt safer than saying trauma survivors. Our sessions were practical breathing exercises, cognitive reframing, sleep hygiene. I never mentioned the Harpers by name. I called them a previous employer's family. She didn't push. March 2022 brought senior HR specialist at $64,000. I moved to a larger cubicle with a second monitor. Small victories. The real shift came in August 2023. HR manager, $79,000. A team of 5 reporting to me, including Lyra Caldwell, a 26-year-old coordinator who reminded me of myself before I'd learned what families could do. You're different from other managers, Lyra told me once. You actually listen. I didn't tell her I'd learned to listen by necessity, that silence had been my survival strategy in a household where every word could be weaponized. How do you explain that your best professional skills were forged in captivity? Jonathan Ashford was 34, a software engineer who'd worked at Vanguard for 2 years, before I managed to notice him past my carefully constructed walls. He approached me in November 2023 about a team conflict, stayed for coffee, came back the next week with questions that had nothing to do with HR policy. You're careful, he observed during our third coffee, like you're always expecting something to break. Things usually do, I said. He didn't push for details. That's what made him different. Julian had demanded access to every corner of my life. Jonathan seemed content to wait at the threshold until I decided to open the door. By February 2024, we were seeing each other regularly, dinners, movies, nothing rushed. He knew I'd been married before. He didn't know the rest. How could I explain that I'd been held prisoner by a real estate dynasty, while Atlanta's elite toasted champagne at their galas? The final promotion came on April 15, 2024. Director of Human Resources, Jonathan Ashford told me, reading the announcement on the company intranet before I'd even opened my email. Elena Castellano, Director of Human Resources, $101,000, private office on the 14th floor. He pulled me into a hug in the break room. You did this yourself. I had. Every certification, every project, every sleepless night studying labor law and organizational psychology. No one had handed me anything. No one had leveraged family connections or opened doors through shared last names. The nameplate arrived 3 days later, Elena Castellano, Director of Human Resources, mounted beside a door with frosted glass and a view of Midtown's skyline. I stood in that office on my first day and did the math I'd been avoiding for 6 years. If I'd gone to Columbia, I'd have graduated in 2020 with my master's in social work. I'd have entered the nonprofit world at 45,000, maybe climbed to 60 by 2024 if I'd been lucky. Instead, I was here, director at 35, 6 figures, a trajectory built on ruins. The universe had a sick sense of symmetry. The Harpers had stolen Columbia from me, stolen 4 years and $47,000 and the future I'd planned. In return, I'd built something they could never touch, a career with my own name on it, credentials earned in silence, victories they'd never know about. It should have felt like winning. Jonathan took me to dinner that night at a restaurant in Virginia Highland, the kind of place with cloth napkins and wine lists. We toasted my promotion with glasses I didn't have to ask permission to hold. What are you thinking about? He asked, watching my face. How far I've come, I said. It was true. It just wasn't the whole truth. I didn't tell him that I'd checked Vanguard's real estate portfolio that afternoon and confirmed what I'd suspected: we managed 3 properties the Harpers had developed. That every month, some fraction of my salary likely came from rent paid to companies Julian's family controlled. I didn't tell him that I'd built my escape on the foundation of my captor's success, that freedom and revenge had become impossible to separate. I went home that night to my apartment in Midtown, the 6th place I'd lived since leaving Buckhead, the first that felt permanent. Jonathan kissed me goodnight at the door, patient as always, waiting for permission I wasn't ready to give. Inside, I opened my laptop and did something I'd resisted for 6 years. I searched for Julian Harper. His company's website was outdated, last updated in 2022. The Instagram account hadn't posted since March 2024. The business license showed active status, but the address was still Buckhead, still that house. I told myself I was just checking, making sure the past stayed past. But standing in my apartment with my director title and my 6-figure salary and my carefully rebuilt life, I felt it, the same hunger that had driven me from coordinator to director in 4 years. The same calculation that had turned survival into strategy. I'd climbed high enough to be safe. The question was whether I'd climbed high enough to make them pay. 1 year later, April 2025, I'd discover that while I was climbing, someone else was stealing again. And this time I wouldn't walk away. This time I'd make them pay. The discovery came on a Tuesday morning, buried in application 94. April 8, 2025, 9:15. My 14th floor office overlooked Midtown's skyline, coffee cooling on my desk, beside a spreadsheet tracking 127 candidates for a project coordinator position. Routine hiring work. By noon, I'd narrow the field to 15 interviews, send the form rejections, move on to the next cycle. Application 94 looked ordinary: name, email, phone number, with a Riverside, Georgia area code I hadn't seen in 7 years. Chloe Miller. Common enough. I almost clicked next. But that area code stopped my scroll. Riverside had 12,000 people, most of whom I'd never met. Miller was one of the top 10 surnames in Georgia. Coincidence? My hand hovered over the mouse instead of clicking next applicant. I opened the PDF. Resume header. Chloe Miller, age 26. Bachelor's in Business Administration from Georgia State University, graduated 2021. Professional email address. LinkedIn profile link. Nothing remarkable. Then I scrolled to work history. Operations Manager, Harrington Properties, LLC, Riverside, Georgia, June 2017 to August 2019. Salary $68,000. My coffee cup stopped midair. Harrington Properties. The subsidiary Julian's father had created in 2015 for the Riverside portfolio, the 14 rental properties I'd managed without title, without salary, without anyone outside that house knowing I existed. I set the cup down carefully, clicked to expand the job description. Bullet point 1. Managed vendor relationships for 14 residential properties, negotiated contracts, saving $47,000 annually. I whispered it aloud in my empty office. I wrote those exact words. Bullet point 2. Developed lease renewal communication strategy, increasing tenant retention 23%. My 2017 project. The system I'd built after analyzing 3 years of turnover data, the letters I'd drafted and revised and tested, until the retention rate climbed from 61% to 84%. I'd never published those numbers. They existed only in the files I'd kept on Julian's laptop, backed up to the family's shared drive. Bullet point 3. Restructured property accounting reconciliation process, reducing errors 31%. The Excel system I'd designed in 2016. The formulas I'd written at 2 in the morning when Julian's mother had demanded monthly reports but refused to pay for accounting software. 31% was the exact improvement I'd measured between January and December that year. I scrolled faster. Coordinated maintenance scheduling across multi-unit properties, improving response time from 5.2 days to 1.8 days. Implemented tenant communication protocols, decreasing complaint escalation 42%. Oversaw lease agreement standardization, streamlining legal review process. Every bullet point, every number, every project I'd completed between 2015 and 2018, unpaid and uncredited, locked inside that Buckhead house while Julian's family collected rent, and Vivian Harper told Atlanta's elite I was helping with paperwork. These weren't Chloe Miller's accomplishments, they were mine. My hours, my analysis, my work stolen and monetized under someone else's name. How many hours did I work for free? Calculating, organizing, negotiating, saving them $47,000, so that 7 years later, a woman who'd never met a tenant could claim my work as hers. I pulled up our HR database, searched Chloe Miller Riverside. Nothing in the background check yet, she'd only applied yesterday. I opened LinkedIn, typed her name plus Georgia. Her profile loaded: Chloe Miller Project Coordinator at Riverside Community Bank. Education GSU 2021. Previous employment: Harrington Properties, LLC, Operations Manager, 2017 to 2019. The same dates, the same title, the same lies. I clicked through her connections. 32nd in the list, Marcus Harrington. Marcus, Julian's younger brother, the one who'd watched me serve Christmas dinner in 2016 and asked if I could refill the water glasses because that's what you're here for, right? I clicked Marcus's profile. Relationship status: married to Chloe Brennan Harrington, 2022. Chloe Brennan now. Chloe Miller, after marrying Marcus Harrington in 2022, was 26, a GSU graduate who'd never worked at Harrington Properties but was perfectly willing to claim she had. I sat back in my chair, the leather creaking in the silence. This wasn't identity theft. This was something more calculated. Julian hadn't just kept the Columbia acceptance letter when he'd intercepted it in 2015. He'd kept everything: my project summaries, my work documentation, my accomplishment records from 4 years of unpaid labor. And now, 7 years later, he was distributing them to family members like party favors. Marcus had given his wife my resume, my work history, my professional credentials packaged and polished and ready to deploy. I opened a new encrypted folder on my hard drive, titled it evidence_C Miller_040825. Screenshot of the resume. Downloaded PDF of the full application. Captured her LinkedIn profile. Saved Marcus's profile showing the marriage date. Then I opened a new document and typed, application received, April 8th, 2025, 9:15 a.m. Candidate, Chloe Miller. Née Brennan, married Marcus Harrington, 2022. Position project coordinator, $52,000. Work history claimed. Operations manager, Harrington Properties, LLC. June 2017 to August 2019, $68,000. Discrepancy. All listed accomplishments match my unpublished work. Completed 2015 to 2018, while employed as office manager for Julian Harrington. No public record of Chloe Brennan employment at Harrington Properties during claimed dates. I saved the document, backed it up to 3 separate locations. My hands didn't shake. 7 years of practice holding composure in conference rooms and salary negotiations and performance reviews had taught me how to keep fury contained where it could be useful. But inside, something I'd carefully controlled for 7 years cracked wide open, not panic, not grief, rage, pure and cold and precise. They'd stolen Columbia, stolen $47,000, stolen 4 years of my life and my future and my name. And they were still stealing. These were the words I wrote. The work I did, the life I lived, and she'd signed her name to all of it. I had 3 choices: reject the application and let it go, move on, protect my peace, stay safe in the life I'd rebuilt, flag it for fraud and expose the theft publicly, report it to our legal department, let the company investigate, watch it unravel in depositions and subpoenas, or accept her for an interview and make her explain every bullet point she stole from my life. I moved my cursor to the application status dropdown. Clicked once. Selected Schedule Interview Round 1. If the Harringtons wanted to play with my work, they'd do it under oath on record in my office, answering questions I'd spent 7 years learning to ask. I clicked Send Interview Invitation and watched the automated email populate Chloe Miller's inbox. Interview scheduled April 15th, 2025, 10 o'clock, HR Director's Office, 14th floor. 1 week to prepare. 1 week to decide exactly how much I was willing to destroy to make them pay. I spent the first hour building the evidence file. By 9:30, I'd moved to Chloe's references section. 2 names listed: Marcus Harrington, Property Manager, Harrington Properties, LLC 5550198. Julian Harrington, Operations Director, Harrington Properties, LLC 5550142. The man who'd stolen my Columbia acceptance was now vouching for someone stealing my work history. He wasn't just distributing my files, he was actively validating the fraud, lending his name as a professional reference for accomplishments he knew Chloe had never achieved, because I'd done them. I clicked Print Application and locked my office door. Then I whispered it to the empty room. What else did you keep, Julian? My computer had access to Vanguard's full applicant tracking system going back 15 years. Every application, every interview note, every rejection reason archived and searchable. I'd used it 1,000 times for background checks and pattern analysis. I'd never searched for myself. I opened the ATS database, typed Elena Castellano. In the name field, filtered the date range to 2018. One result appeared: Application ID 47829. Position Project Coordinator. Submitted February 12, 2018. Status flagged red with 2 words in capital letters: Rejected, do not hire. My hands went cold against the keyboard. I clicked to open the full file. Resume, uploaded February 12th. Phone screen, completed March 8th. Panel interview, March 22nd. Interview scores: communication, 9 out of 10. Technical knowledge, 8 out of 10. Cultural fit, 9 out of 10. Recommendation: strong candidate, offer recommended. Then a note dated April 15th, 2018, 11:52 p.m. Anonymous complaint received. Investigating before proceeding. April 15th, the day before I'd walked 3.2 miles to Buckhead, Expecting good news about Colombia, still believing Julian wanted me to succeed, I opened the complaint file. Email from concerned reference at protonmail.com. Sent April 15th, 2018, 11:47 p.m. Subject line: warning regarding Elena Castellano application. Body text: I feel obligated to warn you about Elena Castellano's character issues and workplace conflicts. She has a history of family disputes and unprofessional conduct at her previous employer, Harrington Properties. I cannot in good conscience recommend her for any position requiring trust or discretion. I recognize the phrasing immediately. Feel obligated. Character issues. In good conscience. Julian's formal language, the same careful construction he used in real estate contracts and family correspondence. But it was the metadata that confirmed it. I hovered over the sender information. A tooltip appeared showing recovery email configuration, recovery phone 40455501420. The number Julian used for real estate deals, the same number listed on Chloe's application as his professional reference. He'd sent the email himself. 11:47 at night, hours after the HR team had recommended my offer, Julian had created an anonymous account and sabotaged my application. The night before, he told me Colombia had rejected me. I scrolled down to the note chain. June 14th, 2023, 8:15 a.m. HR Manager Laura Hendricks forwarded the complaint to Harrison Kingsley, Director of Human Resources. Harrison's note: need to verify. Strong candidate otherwise. Will investigate. April 16th, 9:30 a.m. A second email arrived. This one from cpemberton.consulting@gmail.com. Mr. Kingsley, I understand you are considering Elena Castellano for a position at Vanguard Consulting Group. As a local business consultant familiar with Riverside's professional community, I can confirm the concerns raised about Miss Castellano's unfortunate reputation. She has caused considerable disruption in a family business setting. I would strongly advise caution. Sincerely, Constance Pemberton, business consultant. Constance Pemberton, Julian's mother, co-signing the sabotage with her maiden name and a fake consulting email. Harrison's final note: June 14th, 2023, 2:47 p.m. Confirmed via external source. Rejecting candidate. Moving to next applicant. Status changed to rejected, do not hire. They hadn't just stolen Colombia. They'd hunted me down 7 years ago, tracked my job applications, and systematically destroyed the first opportunity I'd found outside their control. How far did they go to keep me down Colombia? Then this job scanning opportunities across Atlanta to destroy anything I built without their permission. I sat back in my chair, the leather creaking too loud in the silence. My coffee had gone cold an hour ago. The skyline outside my window looked the same as it had at 9:15, but the world had shifted. I clicked back to the file directory looking for anything else they might have left behind. A folder labeled Draft Documents appeared at the bottom of my 2018 application file. I opened it. One file inside dated April 15th, 2018, 3:22 p.m., 4 hours before Julian's sabotage email arrived. Offer_letter_e Castellano_draft.pdf. I clicked it. The Nexus Innovations letterhead loaded first, then the text: Dear Ms. Castellano, we are pleased to offer you the position of project coordinator at an annual salary of $58,000. Your skills and experience make you an excellent fit for our team. Your anticipated start date is April 28th, 2018. Please review the attached benefits summary and return the signed acceptance form by April 20th, 2018. Created by Harrison Kingsley, April 15th, 2018, 3:22 p.m. Status unsent draft. I read it 3 times. $58,000. April 28th start date. My name on an offer letter that had never been sent. They'd selected me, on merit, before Julian intervened. I'd spent 7 years thinking I wasn't good enough for this company in 2018, that my application was weak, that I'd failed on merit. I'd climbed from coordinator to director, believing I was making up for something I'd lacked. And the whole time the offer had been written, approved, ready to send, until Julian and Constance stole it. My hands were shaking now, 7 years of control finally cracking. Not from fear, from the precision of understanding exactly what had been taken. Columbia, $47,000 and a master's degree. This job, $58,000 and 3 years of earlier career advancement. My work history packaged and distributed to family members like inherited silver. Every struggle since 2015 hadn't been bad luck or personal failure. It had been manufactured, deliberate, coordinated. I printed the offer letter, printed the sabotage emails, printed the metadata showing Julian's phone number and Constance's consulting alias, printed Chloe's application with its stolen accomplishments, stacked them in a folder marked evidence_Harrington_fraud, unsent offer letter with my name, $58,000. April 28th, 2018 start date. I was selected, they stole that too. I had evidence now, not just suspicion, but proof timestamped and archived in corporate systems. Julian's phone number on the anonymous complaint. Constance's fake consulting email. My unsent offer letter showing I'd earned the position before they sabotaged it. Chloe's stolen resume referencing work only I had done. 7 years of sabotage documented in pixels and metadata, preserved by the same systems they'd never thought I'd have access to. The question wasn't whether I could prove it anymore. The question was what I'd do with a loaded gun. I answered the question the next morning by dialing Harrington Properties on April 9th at 10:30, with a voice recorder running and 7 years of rage locked behind professional courtesy. 15 minutes of preparation. Digital recorder app open employment verification template on my second monitor. I scripted neutral questions, dates of employment, job title, duties, performed, eligibility for rehire, standard corporate language, forgettable and routine. I practiced the tone until my voice sounded bored, not victorious. Standard employment verification for applicant Chloe Miller, routine background check. He wouldn't recognize my voice. 7 years was long enough to erase someone who'd never mattered. The recorder displayed in red, recording employment _verification _C. Miller _040925.m4a. I dialed 7705550198. 2 rings. Harrington Properties. How may I direct your call? Julian Harrington, please. Employment verification matter. 1 moment. Hold music, 30 seconds. Then Julian Harrington. Professional, pleasant, cooperative, 0 recognition. Mr. Harrington, this is Elena Castellano, HR Director at the Vanguard Consulting Group letterhead. Loaded first, I'm conducting employment verification for an applicant who listed you as a reference. Do you have a moment? Of course, happy to help. What do you need? Warm, helpful. The voice of someone doing a colleague a favor. Not someone who'd stolen my acceptance letter, sabotaged my job application, packaged my work history for his sister-in-law. Just a businessman assisting with routine paperwork. Employment dates and responsibilities for Chloe Miller. Maiden name, Brennan. Oh yes, Chloe, excellent employee. What would you like to know? I clicked my pen loud enough for the recording. Can you confirm her employment dates? June 2017 through August 2019. Full-time operations manager. Salary was $68,000. I wrote the numbers hand steady. Primary responsibilities. Chloe managed our residential portfolio, 14 units in Riverside. Vendor management, tenant relations, accounting reconciliation, lease administration. Really transformed our operational efficiency. Every detail my actual work. Her organizational skills, exceptional. Attention to detail, proactive problem solving. She implemented systems we still use today. Systems I'd designed. My intellectual property stolen and attributed. Would you rehire Miss Miller? Absolutely, we'd be lucky to have her back. I paused 3 seconds before asking the question that mattered. During Miss Miller's tenure, were any other employees performing these same operational duties? 3 seconds of silence from his end. No, just Chloe. She handled all of it independently. The lie. Recorded. So Miss Miller was the sole employee responsible for vendor negotiations, tenant communications, and accounting reconciliation during those years. That's correct. Sole point person for all operational management. Thank you, Mr. Harrington. That completes our verification. I ended the call. He didn't remember. 7 years. Columbia, the stolen job, the sabotage, me, gone. I'd been erased so completely he'd just committed perjury on a recorded line without recognizing my name, my voice, or the trap. I saved the recording to 3 encrypted folders and added it to the evidence file. 2 days passed in careful routine. I maintained normalcy while the evidence folder grew. April 11th, late afternoon. Lyra Caldwell knocked holding 2 printed pages. Do you have a minute? Of course. She closed the door. I was reviewing finalist applications for project coordinator. This one, Chloe Miller, something felt familiar. The phrasing, the structure. Then I saw this word. She pointed to Chloe's resume, developed systematic approach to lease renewal communications. Systematic, INC reversed. I've seen that exact typo before. She placed the second page beside it. My internal HR report from Q2 2023 implemented systematic interview process for senior level candidates. The same error. You always reverse the I and the C in systematic, Lyra said quietly. I've copy-edited your reports for 3 years. It's in your Q4 2022 summary, Q1 2024 analysis, and at least 6 other documents. Before I reveal what that spelling error really proved, are you still with me? Comment. A, if you think this makes the case stronger. B, if it's too circumstantial, and tell me why in 5 to 10 words. A quick note, some details ahead are fictionalized to deepen the emotional impact, but the lesson is what matters. I'd spent 3 years writing reports, never noticing I misspelled the same word every time, and now that careless error was the signature proving someone had stolen my intellectual property. Not just employment fraud, not just Chloe lying about experience. Intellectual property theft. Using my written work, my proprietary documentation, my authored content for financial gain without permission. A felony in Georgia. Enforceable under federal copyright law. Lyra stood at my desk, holding evidence of authorship I hadn't known existed. This resume, these aren't her accomplishments, are they? Lyra asked. These are yours. Yes. From when? 2015 through 2018, before I worked here. Before I had this name or this office or any way to prove what I'd done. Lyra looked at the pages, then at me. What do you want me to do? I met her eyes. You do exactly what you always do. Your job. Process the applications, schedule the interviews, treat this like any other hiring cycle. She understood normal on the surface, war underneath. Interview scheduled for April 15th, 10 o'clock, Lyra confirmed. Perfect. She left, closing the door. Chapter 4 was ending with evidence locked and loaded. Julian's recorded perjury, the unsent offer letter, the metadata trail, and proof of authorship in a spelling error I'd never meant to leave behind. Chapter 5 would be the interview. On April 11th, I walked into Harrison Kingsley's office with a folder marked Conflict of Interest Project Coordinator Position 094 and told my CEO I needed to interview someone who'd stolen my life. Harrison's 15th floor executive office had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Midtown. He gestured to the chair across from his desk, closed the door himself. I'm here to declare a conflict of interest and request internal audit supervision for an interview, I said. Harrison folded his hands on the desk. Walk me through it. What kind of conflict? The kind where every word on her resume is mine and I have proof. I spread the documents across his desk. Chloe's resume with sections highlighted in yellow. Printed transcript of the verification call with Julian's lies time-stamped. The 2018 ATS archive showing sabotage emails from concerned reference at protonmail.com and cpemberton.consulting@gmail.com. The unsent offer letter dated April 15th, 2018. Harrison read each page methodically, his expression unchanging, except for the slight tightening around his eyes when he reached the offer letter. He read it aloud. Dear Ms. Castellano, we are pleased to offer you the position of project coordinator at an annual salary of $58,000. Your anticipated start date is April 28th, 2018. He looked up. This is your name 7 years ago. It was never sent. Anonymous sabotage emails arrived the night before from the same people now vouching for Miss Miller. Harrison picked up his phone, typed a quick text. 30 seconds later, a knock on the door. Roland Pierce entered 51, internal audit director at Nexus for 9 years, former corporate litigation attorney who'd seen every flavor of employment fraud and knew exactly how to document it. Harrison gestured him to the second chair, handed him the evidence stack without explanation. Roland read silently for 3 minutes. Applicant Chloe Miller claims employment as operations manager at Harrington Properties, June 2017 through August 2019. Roland said finally. Work history content matches Elena's proprietary documentation from the same period. Applicant's brother-in-law, Julian Harrington, provides professional reference confirming employment, verifiable lie. 2 sabotage emails from 2018 blocking Elena's application here, metadata links to same Julian Harrington. Harrison was staring at the 2018 email printout, recognition crossing his face. I remember this, he said quietly. April 2018. Strong candidate, excellent interviews. Then last-minute external complaints. He touched the printed email from Constance Pemberton. This one, the business consultant from Riverside. Her credentials seemed legitimate. Local professional, no obvious connection to the candidate, detailed concerns about workplace conduct. Harrison looked at me. I remember thinking the timing was suspicious. Complaint arrived hours before we were sending the offer. But I had no reason to doubt an external professional reference. You had no reason to doubt, I said. They were professionals at lying. If I'd pushed back on the external verification, then I'd have started here in 2018 instead of 2019. But I'm here now, and this time I have proof. 7 years. Harrison had been carrying the same uneasy feeling I'd been carrying, that something about April 2018 didn't add up, and neither of us had proof until now. Roland tapped the verification call transcript. Georgia's a one-party consent state for recording. This call is admissible. Combined with the intellectual property evidence, the spelling error signature, the proprietary work content, this moves from employment fraud to monetized theft of authored material. He looked at Harrison. If the resume content is her intellectual property created during unpaid labor, they've monetized stolen work. That's legally actionable. Harrison leaned back in his chair. What do you need? I want to conduct this interview, I said, with Roland present as internal audit observer. Legal recording disclosed upfront full compliance. Every question documented, every answer on record. Approved, Harrison said. Elena, you have full authority to conduct this interview. Roland supervises for audit trail integrity. Roland made notes on his tablet. Interview protocol. I'll be present as compliance observer, recording disclosed to candidate at start per Georgia law. The moment they walk in, the record is running. I want everything documented, I said. Every lie, every stolen bullet point, every question she can't answer about work she never did. Harrison handed the evidence folder back to me. That's the most thorough preparation I've seen. Proceed. I left his office with authorization secured and the trap legally set. 2 days later, April 13th evening. Jonathan arrived at my apartment with Thai takeout and the careful quietness of someone who knew something had shifted. We sat on my couch with containers of pad Thai cooling between us, and I told him everything. Columbia acceptance stolen in 2010. Unpaid labor. 2015 through 2018. The 3.2-mile walk. The 2018 sabotage. 7 years rebuilding from nothing. Chloe's application with my work packaged as hers. Jonathan listened without interrupting, didn't offer solutions or judgments, didn't ask why I hadn't told him sooner. When I finished, and tomorrow I interview her with everything recorded, he was quiet for 30 seconds. Then, are you okay? Not, what will you do, or is it worth it, or shouldn't you just let it go? Just, are you okay? I will be, I said, after tomorrow. Jonathan made tea without asking if I wanted any, sat beside me on the couch, didn't fill the silence with advice I hadn't requested. Do you need me there tomorrow? He asked finally. No, but I needed you tonight, to say it out loud to someone who'd just listen. Then I listened, that was all. We sat until my breathing steadied and the tea went cold, and I understood that some support came not from fixing, but from witnessing. He left at 10, kissed my forehead at the door, didn't ask for updates or promises to be careful. I locked the door behind him and stood in my apartment, understanding the shape of what tomorrow would be. The interview wasn't really about exposing Chloe. It was about forcing Julian into a corner with no exit, either confess he provided the stolen files and implicate himself in intellectual property theft, or abandon his sister-in-law to fraud charges and destroy the family loyalty he'd used as a weapon for years. A legal trap where he lost regardless of his choice. Tomorrow I'd walk into that conference room like I was conducting a routine interview, and Julian would learn too late that he'd handed me the weapon I needed, wrapped in his sister-in-law's resume, signed with his own verification lies. Next morning, I put on my gray suit, the one I'd bought for my HR director promotion, not worn since, and printed a placard for the conference table, Elena Castellano, HR director. Not Miller, not married name. The name Julian wouldn't recognize on a phone call, but would see too late when Chloe walked into the interview room. War was no longer underneath. War was 10 o'clock sharp. At 9:55 on April 15th, I stood in the Nexus lobby, watching the revolving door. Heart steady, hands steady. 7 years of waiting condensed into 5 minutes before Julian Harrington walked into my trap. The lobby was quiet. Morning sun through floor-to-ceiling glass. Elevator chime marking time. I wore the gray suit nameplate clipped to my folder, Elena Castellano, HR Director. I'd rehearsed this moment for 3 days. Professional smile, firm handshake, zero emotion, until they were on record. Conference room 6 was ready on the 14th floor, Roland already waiting with recording equipment tested and legal disclosure prepared. The receptionist glanced at me. "Miss Castellano, everything's set." I nodded, checking my phone. 9:57, 3 minutes. Chloe was scheduled for 10 o'clock. Julian wouldn't know I was the interviewer until he saw my face, if he came at all. Part of me wondered if he'd send Chloe alone, stay safe in Riverside. But I'd counted on his arrogance. Counted on him wanting to shepherd his fraud through personally, make sure Chloe said the right things, perform the role he'd scripted. 9:58, the revolving door turned. Chloe Brennan now. Miller entered in Target business casual black slacks and cream blouse, portfolio clutched against her chest. 26 nervous energy radiating in the way she scanned the lobby for the reception desk. She didn't look like someone committing fraud. She looked like every other anxious candidate I'd interviewed over 4 years. She approached the desk. "I'm here for a 10 o'clock interview, project coordinator position." "Ms. Miller," the receptionist confirmed. "Ms. Castellano will greet you momentarily." Chloe nodded. Stepped aside, checked her phone. She didn't recognize the name Elena Castellano from the interview confirmation email. Julian had never told her who I was or what he'd done. She genuinely believed the resume was legitimate work history Julian had helped her organize and format. She was bait and she didn't know it. The door revolved again. Julian Harrington entered 43 navy suit leather portfolio. The same confident stride I remembered from Buckhead dinner parties where he'd introduced me as "my wife, she helps with paperwork." He checked his phone, scanned the lobby architecture with the appraising eye of a real estate professional, didn't yet look toward reception where I stood 15 feet away. Chloe spotted him, relief visible. "Julian, this building is huge. I'm so nervous." "You'll be fine," he said, still looking at his phone. "Just answer their questions honestly." Honestly, the word almost made me laugh. I stepped forward, extended my hand to Chloe. "Ms. Miller, I'm Elena Castellano, HR Director. Welcome to Nexus." Chloe shook my hand, smile nervous but genuine. "Thank you so much for this opportunity." Julian's head snapped up at the sound of my voice. Our eyes met. Color drained from his face like someone had opened a valve. The phone nearly slipped from his hand. His mouth opened, slightly closed, opened again without sound. I watched recognition hit him like physical impact. 7 years since I'd walked out of his house. 7 years since he'd stolen Columbia, sabotaged my job, erased me from his life so completely he'd committed perjury without recognizing my name. But he recognized my face. I held his gaze, smiled professionally. "And you must be Ms. Miller's consultant. I don't believe we have you registered for today's interview." Julian's throat worked. "Julian Harrington, I'm family friend, providing moral support." His voice was tight, controlled, the same careful tone he used in real estate negotiations when the deal had turned against him. "How thoughtful," I said. "Please, both of you follow me to conference room 6. Julian's eyes darted toward the exit, toward Chloe, back to me. I could see the calculation crossing his face. Leaving would abandon Chloe and raise immediate suspicion. Staying meant facing my interview with whatever evidence I'd prepared. Interrupting or warning Chloe would reveal he knew the resume was fraudulent. Every option closed. 7 years ago, I'd walked away from Buckhead with nothing, unknown and powerless. Today, Julian Harrington stood in my office building, trapped in my interview, facing my evidence. And the only power he had left was the choice of how publicly he'd lose. "Julian, are you okay?" Chloe asked, noticing his pallor. "You look pale." "Fine," he managed. "Just didn't expect—" He trailed off because there was no way to finish that sentence without confession. I pressed the elevator button. 14th floor. Our internal audit director will observe today's interview for compliance purposes. Standard protocol for all external hiring. Internal audit, legal recording, compliance documentation. I watched Julian process each word, understanding deepening in his eyes. The elevator arrived. We stepped inside Chloe. Oblivious, Julian froze in me, watching his reflection in the polished steel doors as numbers climbed. Silent ride. Chloe rehearsed answers mentally, lips moving slightly. Julian stared at the floor numbers, jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping. 14th floor. I led them down the hallway, footsteps muffled on corporate carpet, past offices with frosted glass and nameplates. Conference room 6 at the end of the hall. I opened the door. Roland Pierce stood as we entered, gray suit, tablet-ready recording equipment positioned on the conference table. Red light already blinking on the device standby mode, waiting for activation. Ms. Miller, Mr. Harrington, please have a seat. I gestured to chairs on one side of the table. Roland and I took the opposite side, my nameplate centered between us where they couldn't miss it. Roland folded his hands. Roland Pierce, Internal Audit Director. This interview will be recorded for documentation and legal compliance purposes. Georgia is a one-party consent state, but we're disclosing as professional courtesy. Do you both consent to being recorded? Chloe nodded quickly. Yes, of course. Julian's eyes were locked on the recording device. 3 seconds of silence before he nodded once, jaw still clenched. Verbal consent, please, Roland said. I consent, Julian said, voice barely audible. Roland pressed a button. The red light changed from blinking to solid. Recording active April 15th, 2025, 10:02 a.m. Present. Elena Castellano, HR Director. Roland Pierce. Internal Audit Director. Chloe Miller, Candidate. Julian Harrington, Consultant. The recording light blinked red, steady, patient, permanent, and I thought about how much damage you can do when someone hands you a weapon and doesn't realize you know how to aim. Conference room door closed behind us. 3 of us sitting, Chloe, nervous and oblivious, Julian frozen and calculating me with a folder containing every piece of evidence and 7 years of questions. Roland's tablet glowed with the transcript already capturing our voices, timestamping every word. I opened my folder and smiled. Let's begin. My first question was standard interview protocol. Ms. Miller, please walk us through your current understanding of project coordination and how your previous experience prepared you for this role. Chloe sat across from me, Julian to her right. Both facing the panel, Roland Pierce documenting on my right, Lyra Caldwell as HR manager on my left. Recording light, steady red. Chloe cleared her throat. I've managed multiple simultaneous projects using task prioritization and stakeholder communication. My experience at Harrington Properties taught me to balance competing demands while maintaining quality standards. Rehearsed, adequate. I wrote notes. Can you describe your preferred project management methodology? Agile framework with weekly sprints and milestone tracking. Roland leaned forward. How did you approach vendor contract negotiations at Harrington Properties? Competitive bidding process, comparing quotes, selecting best value proposals based on quality and cost metrics. Vague, textbook. Lyra asked the trap question. What software systems did you use for property accounting reconciliation? Chloe hesitated. QuickBooks and Excel for custom tracking. Custom tracking of what specifically? Revenue, expenses, maintenance cost per unit. General categories. Nothing proprietary. Nothing only someone who'd actually built those systems would know. Julian sat confidently beside Chloe, nodding occasionally, body language relaxing. He believed this was routine due diligence before extending an offer. Lyra asked 3 more scripted questions: vendor payment schedules, lease renewal protocols, maintenance escalation. Chloe answered with general business knowledge, never mentioning the specific systems I'd designed. She didn't know they existed. 10:22. Roland closed his tablet. Thank you, Ms. Miller. We'll take a short break. HR Director Castellano will continue with follow-up questions regarding your specific work history. Lyra stood collected her notes. Good answers so far. They moved toward the door in choreography we'd rehearsed. Lyra glanced back once, silent confirmation, then followed Roland out. The door clicked shut. 3 seconds of silence. The door clicked shut, and I was alone with them. The man who'd stolen 7 years of my life, and the woman wearing my accomplishments like a borrowed coat, and the only sound was the recording device humming, permanent and patient. I opened the evidence folder. Let's discuss specific accomplishments. Your resume states you negotiated contracts that saved $47,000 annually. How did you calculate that figure? Chloe blinked, comparing previous year costs to new vendor rates. Previous to what year specifically? I'd have to check exact dates. You managed these properties for 2 years. You don't recall which year you achieved the cost savings. It was cumulative over both years. I slid the first document across. Verification call transcript timestamped April 9th, 2025. This is the employment verification I conducted with Mr. Harrington. He confirmed you handled all operational duties independently. Sole point person. Chloe read it confused. The reference call, yes. Mr. Harrington stated you were the only employee performing these functions from 2017 through 2019. Julian shifted. His hand moved toward the document stopped. Chloe didn't see the problem yet. I slid the second document. 2018 ATS archive printout. This is an application submitted to Nexus in February 2018. Applicant Elena Castellano. Position project coordinator. Status changed to rejected on June 14, 2023, following anonymous complaints. I pointed. One from concerned reference at protonmail.com with metadata showing recovery phone 40455504142. That's your phone number, Mr. Harrington, the one you provided as Chloe's reference. Color drained from Chloe's face. Elena Castellano, she whispered. That's you. Third document. Unsent offer letter dated April 15, 2018. Dear Ms. Castellano, we are pleased to offer you the position of project coordinator at an annual salary of $58,000. Your anticipated start date is April 28, 2018. Chloe read it twice. You were hired. I was selected. The offer was drafted. Then Mr. Harrington and his mother sent anonymous complaints destroying my candidacy hours before it would have been sent. Julian, what is this? Chloe's voice shook. Elena, this is completely, Julian started. Mr. Harrington, you're not a scheduled participant. Please don't interrupt. Julian's jaw clenched. I slid the fourth document. Side-by-side comparison, Chloe's handwritten cover letter, resume bullet points. This is your handwriting from your application cover letter, correct? Chloe nodded. Notice the sentence structure, simple, direct, no spelling errors. I pointed to the resume. Now the operational descriptions, complex clauses, passive voice. And here, develop systematic approach to lease renewal communications. The word systematic spelled incorrectly, I before C. I slid one more page. My Q2 2023 internal report, implemented systematic interview process. I make this exact spelling error in every document I write. 6 years of internal reports. My signature mistake. Chloe stared at the comparison, her own handwriting proving she hadn't written the resume content. You didn't write this resume, did you, Ms. Miller? Tears filled her eyes. She shook her head. How does it feel? I wanted to ask Julian to watch your plan disassemble document by document, each page, another lock closing each timestamp, another lie. You can't unsay on legal recording. I stacked the evidence in front of Chloe, stolen resume, stolen offer letter, 7 years of stolen opportunities. With the abilities shown in this resume, I paused, watching Julian calculate whether to confess or let Chloe take the fall. This is the 7-year question: who actually did this work, Ms. Miller? Chloe's eyes filled with tears. Julian's hand reached for hers, and I waited. Chloe's mouth opened, closed, opened again. No words came out, just the silence of someone realizing they'd been used as ammunition in someone else's war. She stared at the evidence documents spread across the table, tears streaming down her face. Julian's hand still touched hers but had frozen mid-reach, paralyzed between comfort and self-preservation. I waited, expressionless, recording running, red light steady. 30 seconds of silence. Chloe looked to Julian for help. Julian, what do I say? Julian stared at the table, jaw clenched, said nothing. I repeated the question. Who did this work, Ms. Miller, you or someone else? Chloe's breath hitched. More silence. I leaned forward, looked directly at her, and used Julian's exact words from 7 years ago. With this kind of ability, I gestured to her resume. Do you still want to have your own career? Julian's head snapped up. Recognition flashed across his face like I'd struck him. Those were his words. June 14th, 2023. Standing in his Buckhead kitchen after he told me Columbia rejected me after he'd sabotaged my job application, asking if I still wanted to pursue social work or if I'd be content managing his properties forever. I held his gaze. Sound familiar, Mr. Harrington? His face went white. That's what you asked me in 2018, Julian. When you stole Columbia, when you stole this job, when you stole 7 years. Chloe looked between us, confusion adding to her distress. I continued, voice still controlled, every word measured. Every bullet point on that resume, I wrote them between midnight and 2 a.m., while your boyfriend Marcus slept downstairs, while Julian told me I was lucky to have unpaid work, while Constance reminded me I had no other options. Chloe's face crumpled. She was beginning to understand the depth of what had been done to me and what she'd unknowingly participated in. 14 properties, $47,000 in savings, 23% retention increase. Those are my numbers, my projects, my midnight hours, every single one. I didn't know, Chloe whispered. I didn't know any of this. Elena, please, Julian started. I cut him off. You don't get to speak yet. I stood, walked to the wall panel, turned on the conference room projector. The screen lit up with a split view I'd prepared yesterday. Left side scanned images of my original 2016 to 2018 property management reports, each showing my name in the header file, metadata, timestamps visible. Right side, Chloe's resume with identical bullet points. Another slide loaded. My financial model spreadsheet created March 2017, showing the detailed vendor cost analysis that calculated the exact dollar amount, $47,000, now on Chloe's resume. File created March 14, 2017. I said, pointing to the metadata. Author Elena Castellano. Original documents. My name. My work. Your resume, Ms. Miller. Roland took notes documenting every exhibit, every timestamp, building the legal case with methodical precision. For 7 years, I'd imagined this moment confronting Julian, making him see what he'd stolen. And now that it was happening, I felt nothing but cold satisfaction watching his own words choke him. Chloe turned to Julian, voice rising with desperation and anger. You told me this was just helping me format a resume. You said you'd take care of everything, that it was legitimate. Chloe, don't, Julian warned. But she was breaking, and broken people tell the truth. You said I owed you. Chloe's voice cracked. For the debt Marcus covered when my mom got sick, $15,000, and if I didn't apply using this resume, you'd demand repayment immediately. I couldn't pay it back, Julian. You knew that. Julian closed his eyes. Chloe, stop talking, now! No. Chloe stood shaking. I'm not going down for your fraud. You forced me to do this. You said it was Marcus's projects you were helping me with, that these were family accomplishments I could claim because I was family now. She turned to me, tears streaming. I didn't know who Elena was. I didn't know what he did to you. I thought this was just resume help for family. I swear I didn't know. I believed her. The confusion in her eyes was real. She was a pawn just like I'd been. Julian exploited everyone, not just me, everyone. I closed the evidence folder, stood. Roland, please document that Ms. Miller has admitted to submitting fraudulent work history under coercion and material misrepresentation. Interview terminated. Roland typed on his tablet. Documented. This interview constitutes evidence of employment fraud and intellectual property theft. I pressed the intercom button. Security to conference room 6. Escort 2 visitors to the lobby. Julian tried one last time. Elena, we need to talk. No, I said, we don't. Footsteps in the hallway. 2 security officers appeared at the door. Please escort them out, I said. Chloe gathered her portfolio with shaking hands, still crying. Security gestured toward the hallway. She walked out first, shoulders hunched. Julian stood slowly, straightened his suit jacket with the careful dignity of someone trying to maintain composure while everything collapsed. He walked to the doorway, then stopped, turned back to face me one final time, searching my face for something. Apology, forgiveness, acknowledgement of what we'd been to each other once upon a time. I walked to the window, turned my back, looked out at the Midtown Atlanta skyline. 14th floor, higher than I'd been in Buckhead, higher than he'd ever let me climb. I didn't look at him. He wanted one last look, one final moment where I'd turn around and acknowledge what we'd been to each other, but I gave him my back, the same thing he'd given me 7 years ago, when I walked away from Buckhead with nothing. Elena, his voice from the doorway. I didn't turn around. Silence. Sir, this way, please, security said. Footsteps receding. Elevator dinged down the hall, doors closing. Gone. I stood at the window until Roland packed up his equipment and left, until the conference room was empty, except for the evidence folder and the recording device still blinking red, documenting silence. Then I walked back to my office. 7 years of birthday cards sat in my desk drawer. Raymond Castellano's return address on every envelope, all unopened. I'd ignored them while building my case against Julian, while climbing from coordinator to director, while gathering evidence and planning revenge. Now Julian was gone, and the evidence was secured and justice was executed. I pulled out the stack of envelopes. 7 years. 20, 19, 20, 20, 20, 21, 20, 22, 20, 23, 20, 24, 20, 25. Chapter 5 ended with Julian gone and evidence secured. Chapter 6 would answer what I'd do with forgiveness I'd never asked for. My office phone rang at 11:15, Harrison's extension, and his voice said 4 words. "Elena, come upstairs, please." I left Raymond's birthday cards on my desk and took the elevator to the 20th floor. Harrison's executive office overlooked all of Midtown. He stood at the window, Roland Pierce, seated at the conference table with his tablet still documenting. Harrison turned when I entered. "Are you okay?" "That was personal, and you handled it like a seasoned executive." "I'm fine," I said. "I prepared for this for 7 years." "That was the most thorough conflict of interest handling I've witnessed," Harrison said. "You protected the company, documented everything, maintained composure under extraordinary circumstances. I'm impressed." Roland looked up from his tablet. "Full recording submitted to legal. Clear evidence of employment fraud and intellectual property theft. Airtight case if you choose to pursue it." "I will," I said. Harrison gestured to a chair. "There's someone who wants to speak with you." Roland reached out as part of witness interviews. Roland turned his tablet screen toward me. Video call already connected. Constance Pemberton appeared on screen, 68, white hair, sitting in what looked like a sunroom in Savannah. Retired now. The woman whose 2018 email had helped destroy my job application. She looked uncomfortable, guilty. "Ms. Castellano," she began, "I owe you an apology. Mr. Pierce contacted me this morning about the 2018 verification I provided regarding your application." I waited. "Julian Harrington called me in April 2018, Constance continued. "Said he was calling as a professional courtesy. Claimed you had workplace conduct issues at his company, asked if I'd confirm concerns if Nexus contacted me. I'd consulted for Harrington Properties years before knew the family. I trusted him." She paused, hands folded tight. "I never saw his anonymous sabotage email. He told me you had professionalism problems, and when Mr. Kingsley called for external verification, I confirmed based on what Julian had told me. I thought I was providing accurate professional assessment." "You were manipulated," I said quietly. Constance's eyes glistened. "I'm deeply sorry, Miss Castellano. I was used to sabotage your career. If I'd known the truth—" "You weren't the only one he used, Ms. Pemberton. Julian hadn't just lied to me, he'd weaponized everyone around him, turned Constance into unwitting accomplice, Chloe into coerced fraud participant, even his own family's business into collateral damage. And I wondered how many layers of manipulation I'd never see." Constance signed off with another apology. The screen went dark. Harrison sat across from me. "There's another matter. I'm offering you a promotion to VP of People Operations, $145,000 executive team position, oversight of all HR and talent functions." I looked at him, processing. "VP executive team. You've earned this role, Elena, not despite what happened today, because of how you handled it." "Give me a week," I said. "I need to finish what I started before I can think about what comes next." Harrison nodded. "Take the time you need, the offer stands." I went back to my office. The phone started ringing at 2 p.m. Julian's number. I didn't answer. Voicemail. "Elena, please, we need to talk about this reasonably." Delete. Another call. Another voicemail. "I can explain everything if you just listen." Delete. 8 calls by 6 p.m. I stopped listening. 7:30 that evening, my cell phone rang. Unknown number. "This is Victoria Harrington," a woman's voice said. Sharp, angry. "Julian's sister. You set up my brother. This is entrapment." Victoria Harrington was 40. Julian's older sister, a real estate agent who'd built her career believing family loyalty meant defending her brother regardless of evidence. "This is harassment," I said. "Don't call again." I hung up, blocked the number. April 16th, 9:30 a.m. Security called. "Ms. Castellano, Julian Harrington is in the lobby requesting to see you. Per your alert, we've denied entry." "Correct. If he doesn't leave, call police." "Understood." 2 p.m., security called again. He's back, refusing to leave, police en route. I didn't go downstairs. Didn't watch. 10 minutes later, trespassing citation issued. He's gone. April 16th, 3 p.m. I met Vivian Gallagher at her Buckhead law office. Vivian Gallagher was 46 intellectual property litigation specialist with a Buckhead practice and a reputation for winning cases other attorneys called unwinnable. I spread the evidence across her conference table: verification recording, sabotage emails, unsent offer letter, interview confession recording, then the USB drive I'd kept since 2018. Financial documents from 2015 through 2018, copies of everything I created. I kept them as insurance. Vivian plugged the drive into her laptop, scrolled through files. Her expression changed. This is airtight, she said. Documented fraud, recorded confession, time-stamped sabotage. They have no defense. She kept scrolling, stopped. Elena, this USB contains more than you realize. These financial reconciliation files, they show systematic irregularities in reported income. I documented what they told me to document. You documented evidence of tax evasion, Vivian said quietly. Possibly criminal-level fraud. I stared at the screen. Numbers I'd entered 7 years ago, not understanding what they meant. Arthur Harrington's schemes preserved in my meticulous record-keeping. Smart, Vivian said. Keeping copies. This changes everything. We filed cease and desist and IP infringement lawsuit, April 17th. Named defendants: Julian Harrington, Chloe Miller Harrington Properties, LLC. May 2025. Discovery process triggered IRS review of Harrington Properties financial records, June 12th. Vivian's email. IRS audit expanded. Your USB drive contained evidence of systematic tax fraud you documented 2015 to 2018. Arthur Harrington under investigation. July, criminal referral filed. August 14th, 2025. Vivian's final email. Harrington Properties LLC officially dissolved. Assets seized by IRS. Criminal referrals filed against Arthur and Julian Harrington. Your intellectual property case settled, full acknowledgement of fraud. Permanent injunction damages paid. Case closed. I sat in my apartment reading the email 3 times. It's over. The words didn't feel real. Victory tasted like nothing. Not sweet, not bitter, just the absence of weight. I'd carried so long, I'd forgotten what it felt like to stand without it pressing down. Julian's empire destroyed. His father's company dissolved. Assets seized. Criminal charges pending. Everything I'd worked toward for 7 years executed with legal precision. And I felt empty. On my desk sat Raymond's unopened birthday cards. 7 years of a father trying. 7 years I'd ignored while building my case, climbing my ladder, gathering my evidence. Justice was finished. Forgiveness was the question I'd been avoiding. The Instagram notification appeared on my phone, May 8th at 9:47 p.m. from an account I didn't recognize. Raymond_Harrington_2014, message preview. Hi, this is Raymond, Julian's nephew. I need to give you something. I opened the DM. Hi, Ms. Castellano. This is Raymond Harrington. I'm Julian's nephew through Marcus. I'm 11 now, but I was 4 in 2018. I recorded this on my iPad because Uncle Julian sounded mean, and you looked really sad when you visited. I didn't know what to do with it until now. My mom says Uncle Julian hurt a lot of people, and I should send this to you. I hope it helps. Attached audio file, 47 seconds, dated April 14th, 2018. I pressed play. Julian's voice clear and confident. Yeah, she walked out this morning thinking she could run away. Thought she had options. I've got everything under control. Called in the Nexus complaint yesterday. Constance confirmed it this morning. She'll never work in Atlanta again. She'll come crawling back when she realizes I own every door she tries to open. Laughter. Another voice I didn't recognize agreeing with him. Julian again. She thought Columbia was real. She thought that job was possible. It's almost sad how naive she is. The file ended. I sat still for 10 minutes, phone in my hand, audio playing on repeat. A 4-year-old child had recorded this. Kept it for 7 years. Sent it to me now because his mother told him Julian hurt people. I typed, Raymond, you've been protecting me for 7 years and you didn't even know it. Thank you. His reply came fast. Are you okay? I will be, I wrote. Are you? Yeah, I just wanted you to have it. I forwarded the audio to Vivian with a note. Additional evidence. Julian's direct confession of intentional sabotage, conspiracy to interfere with employment, recorded April 14th, 2018. Vivienne responded within minutes. This is extraordinary. 4-year-old's iPad recording admissible with proper authentication. Julian confessing intent to blackball you professionally devastating to his defense, adding to criminal file immediately. I messaged Raymond again. You helped more than you know. You're a good person, Raymond. Thanks. My mom says you won and Julian's company is gone. I'm glad. A 4-year-old child I'd never met had been carrying my evidence for 7 years, not knowing what it meant, just knowing something felt wrong. And that small act of witness became the final piece proving Julian's deliberate cruelty. August 15th, email from Constance Pemberton. Subject line, something I should have sent in 2018. Dear Elena, I've been going through old files since retirement. I found the original offer letter drafted for you, April 22nd, 2018, unsigned, never sent. Project coordinator, $58,000, start date, April 28th, 2018. I was instructed to halt the hiring process due to anonymous complaint. I never questioned it. I should have questioned everything. This was yours. You earned this. You were good enough then. You're exceptional now. Congratulations on VP. You built the career they tried to destroy. I'm sorry I didn't see it in 2018. Constance. Attachment official Nexus offer letter with my name, all fields completed except signature line. I printed it, framed it next to my current business card. Elena Castellano, Vice President of People Operations. What was stolen? What was built anyway? Late August, I opened the desk drawer. 7 birthday cards from Thomas Castellano. My father. 2019 through 2025, chronological stack held together with a rubber band I'd added years ago. I opened them one by one. 2019. Happy birthday, Elena. I hope you're building something good. Love, Dad. 2020. Happy birthday. Proud of you wherever you are. Love, Dad. 2021. Happy birthday. I don't know if you read these, but I won't stop sending them. Love, Dad. 2022. Happy birthday. Still here. Still proud. Love, Dad. 2023. Happy birthday. Saw your name in the HR newsletter, coordinator to manager in 3 years. I always knew. Love, Dad. 2024. Happy birthday. You're doing it without me and I'm proud anyway. Love, Dad. 2025, dated March 15th. Happy birthday. Saw your name in Atlanta Business Journal VP at 32. I always knew. Love, Dad. Love. No apologies, no excuses, just consistency. 7 years of reaching across silence. I cried for the first time since April. Not for what was stolen, for what kept trying anyway. September 12th. Project coordinator position reopened after the fraud incident. I interviewed the final candidate in conference room 6, the same room where Chloe had sat, where Julian had watched his plan collapse. 29 years old. Resume gaps, 2020 to 2023. Nervous hands, competent, answers something familiar in the careful way she chose words. I recognize survival masquerading as experience. I see employment gaps here, I said gently. Tell me about that time. What were you building? She hesitated. I was leaving a situation that wasn't safe, building the ability to start over. Tell me about a time you had to prove something to yourself, not to anyone else. She relaxed slightly. Talked about rebuilding credit, finding housing, learning she deserved better. Learning to trust her own judgment after years of someone else's control. I knew every word she didn't say. After she left, Lyra asked, "That was fast. Do you remember that candidate's name already?" I looked at the conference room. Same table, same chairs, same recording light, ready to document truth. But everything had changed 5 months ago. I'd sat here proving what was stolen today. I sat here giving what I'd earned the right to give. I don't remember her, I said. I remember that feeling walking into an interview knowing you're good enough but afraid no one else will see it. Someone saw it for me eventually. Now I see it for her. Recommend hire. Yes, start date October 1st, 54,000 reporting to you. Lyra made notes. You gave her a chance. Someone gave me one, I said. 7 years late, but it came. September ended with 3 things framed on my office wall. The 2018 offer letter. I never got the 2025 VP card I earned anyway. And my father's 2019 birthday card, the first one I'd never opened. I didn't answer him yet. Maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't. But I kept the cards, and that was enough for now. Justice was finished. Forgiveness was starting. And somewhere in Atlanta, a 29-year-old woman with resume gaps was getting a chance I'd fought 7 years to create. The story ended the way it started, with someone walking into an interview room hoping to be seen. But this time I was the one doing the seeing. January 14th, 2026 started with coffee and winter sunshine through my apartment window. 8 years minus 3 months since I'd walked out the back door of a Buckhead mansion, with nothing but a diaper bag and a plan to survive. My phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. Text from Raymond Harrington, 11, now 6th grade. Do you think HR is a good career? I like helping people figure stuff out. I smiled, typed back. It can be, if you like knowing your rights, building real skills, making sure documentation protects people instead of trapping them. Is it hard being VP? Do people listen to you now? I paused, coffee mug warm against my palm. Sometimes, I wrote, but I stopped needing them to listen. I started listening to myself. That's cool, I want to be like that. You already are. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Do you think my dad will be okay? Marcus was under investigation alongside Julian and Arthur. Criminal referrals pending. Family assets seized. I didn't know what would happen to any of them. I don't know, I typed honestly, but you'll be fine. You've already proven it. Thanks, Ms. Castellano. Elena is fine. Thanks, Elena. I put down the phone, looked at my desk calendar. January 14th, 2026. June 14th, 2023 to now was 7 years, 8 months, 29 days. Not quite 8 years. Close enough. 8 years ago, I didn't know if I'd survive the month. Today, I was reviewing a $2.4 million HR budget. Email notification from Jonathan. Dinner tonight, your place or mine? I replied mine, 7:30. Closed my laptop, got ready for work, another Wednesday. That was the victory, ordinary days after years of survival mode. 10 a.m. My 16th floor VP office, larger than any space I'd occupied in Buckhead, windows overlooking Midtown. I trained the new HR coordinator, 22, recent graduate, nervous energy, taking detailed notes on everything I said. How do you spot resume fraud? She asked. I explained gaps without explanation, inflated titles, accomplishments, without evidence, always verify, with actual employer, not just references listed. Professional, measured, revealing nothing personal. Have you ever caught someone committing resume fraud? Once, I said. It was personal, but I handled it professionally. That's the key. You can have history and still do your job with integrity. She wrote that down. If only it were that simple to explain. Do you regret anything from your career? She asked. I thought about June 14th, 2023. Diaper bag, 3.2 miles. Email hidden in my shoe, sleeping baby. Uncertainty so thick I could taste it. I thought about 7 years of silence before confrontation. 7 years of building evidence in secret. 7 years wondering if I'd ever be strong enough to use it. I regret wasting time thinking I deserved what they did to me, I said. That's the longest part to get back, not the job, not the money, the belief that you didn't earn the abuse. She looked up from her notes pen still. So you don't regret confronting them? No, I regret not doing it sooner. I regret 7 years of thinking silence was safer than accountability. What changed? They tried it again, I said. That's when I realized they were never going to stop unless someone made them. The longest distance I traveled wasn't the 3.2 miles through Atlanta in 2018. It was the 7 years from I deserve this to I deserve better. She nodded, slowly wrote something else. We finished the training. She left with her notebook full of procedures, policies, frameworks for fairness. I stayed in my office, reviewing budget projections, responding to emails, approving hiring requisitions. Executive team meeting at 4 p.m. Normal Wednesday operations. Perfect. 5:47 p.m. I packed my laptop, turned off the office lights, took the elevator to ground floor. Walked through Vanguard's lobby, polished marble glass walls, winter evening, dark outside. Behind the reception desk, the building directory board glowed. Elena Castellano, VP, People Operations, Floor 16. My name, my title, my building. Good night, Ms. Castellano, the security guard said. Good night, Marcus. Different Marcus. Not Julian's brother. Just a security guard who'd worked here 3 years, who knew my coffee order from the lobby cafe, who asked about my weekend plans. I pushed through the front revolving door. January cold hit my face sharp and clean. Atlanta, evening rush, headlights and brake lights, sidewalk crowded with people leaving offices. 8 years ago, I went out the back door because the front was blocked. Today, I walked out the front with my name on the building. I didn't destroy Julian's family, I just stopped protecting them. I didn't take revenge. I just did my job. And sometimes doing your job is the scariest thing for someone who's used to living off your silence. People ask if I won. I don't think about it that way. I think about June 14th, 2023, walking 3.2 miles with a diaper bag email hidden in my shoe, baby sleeping against my chest, not knowing if I'd have a job or a home or a future. And I think about January 14th, 2026, walking out of my own office from my own career toward dinner with someone who lets me decide when to open doors. The back door was humiliating, but it led here, and here is enough. If you're reading this, thinking about your own back door, the job you took to escape the apartment you fled to, the name you changed, the career you started over, know this: there's no shame in the back door, unless you let someone else define it. Sometimes the back door isn't a second-class escape. It's the only way to get to where you need to go. I walked down the Atlanta sidewalk away from the building with my name on it toward the life I'd built from nothing. Behind me, the directory board glowed through glass. Elena Castellano, FAP People Operations. Ahead of me, winter evening and ordinary Wednesday, plans dinner with Jonathan, tomorrow's budget meeting texts, with a 12-year-old asking about HR careers. The front door was mine now. It always has been. I just had to go through the back to find it. And to you listening to my story, remember this: the back door isn't a second-class exit, it's sometimes the only way to reach the front. Looking back, my biggest mistake wasn't staying 3 years. It was believing I deserved the treatment. I wasted 7 more years thinking silence was safer than accountability. Don't make that mistake. Don't wait 7 years to prove what you already know about yourself. The evidence you're gathering isn't just against them, it's proof of your own worth. The lesson I learned isn't about revenge, it's about documentation boundaries and believing you deserve better before anyone validates it. When you walk out that back door, whether literal or metaphorical, you're not running away. You're running toward who you were meant to become. I believe God gives us back doors when front doors are blocked for a reason. Sometimes humiliation is redirection. Keep your receipts, trust your instincts, and know that the person trying to destroy you is revealing who they've always been. You're finally seeing it clearly. If this story resonated with you, please leave a comment below, telling me what moment hit hardest. Share this with someone who needs to hear that their back door isn't the end of their story, it's the beginning. And if you haven't already, subscribe to herdramastories for more real-life lessons about resilience, accountability, and reclaiming what was stolen. Your voice matters. Thank you for staying until the very end. Some details in this story were fictionalized to protect privacy and strengthen the message. But the lessons about standing up for yourself, documenting everything, and refusing to accept abuse as normal, those are real. May you find courage to walk through your own back door when you need to.